good to be back, boys. It's good to be back.
We are back.
We are back.
And
what do you like more? 1, Robert Thomas at center. 2, Pavel Buccigross on the wing.
Buccigross on the wing.
Well, one doesn't work without the other because if Bush is on the wing, Shen's at the center, and we don't want that. So they're both together, guys.
I'm still saying Buccigross on the wing.
I'm totally with you.
I'm saying Thomas at center. I have not been enjoying these 35% face-offs after every single game watching this team lose and chase.
It's true that distance makes the heart grow fonder.
Oh, it's true.
It's very, very true.
Why do you think I stick with doing the Blues?
City. The Blues found that out when
I'm
Robert
gone every
Thomas
other
was
night.
Out with a fractured ankle. Alex, my first reaction to this was, holy bleep. If I was Jamie Rivers, I would have said, holy, on the air.
The S word.
Whoa.
T-Bone's not ready.
It's been 4 weeks.
It has.
He had a fractured ankle.
Yeah.
And he's not only back on the ice, but he is playing in a hockey game tonight against the Minnesota Wild. That's unbelievable. But
Doesn't
also,
it make you wish you were young still? You know?
They're kind of still in this thing.
I wish I was a man.
Yeah, they are, BK.
Now, I don't think this team is making the playoffs. I think at this point we know enough about them to know this is an average hockey team. But I also thought they would have to go like 6 to 8 weeks without Robert Thomas in the lineup, and having to withstand that kind of a struggle for that length of time, I think would have just totally snowballed on their season. How do you feel about the Blues right now, Alex, with Robert Thomas back into the lineup?
Great. I mean, you needed this guy back into the lineup. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like this team now is back to being one of the better teams in the Central Division because it's going to be a slower process. Obviously, he has been out for 4 weeks. You still are without another impactful piece in Philip Broberg, but this changes a lot for this Blues team, despite how you feel about them and how they've played. And look, they've looked bad since Thomas and Broberg went down to injuries, including the 2 8-1 losses. But set those aside for a minute. A lot of these other games, it's been 1 goal difference with about 5 minutes to go in the third period. And Robert Thomas makes a difference. Whether you think this team's a playoff team or not, Robert Thomas makes the Blues much more competitive in those scenarios like they had against Buffalo, like they had when they blew the 2-goal lead against the Boston Bruins, like they had against the Utah Hockey Club. Those games are different outcomes with Robert Thomas on the ice. They're even more of a different outcome when you take Pavel Buccigross off of the center position. That's the part that it's like a 1-2 punch right now, to where you've got your number 1 center back. We all saw the heat chart that JR put together on the Athletic page of how red the defensive zone was without Robert Thomas. But on the offensive side, you have not been generating. Pavel Buccigross, despite having 5 goals, 2 of them came in 1 game, and I think it was like a 12-game goalless drought without Pavel Buccigross scoring. He has not been effective for you. So now you're putting 2 guys that you believed at the beginning of the season to be 2 of the 3 best players on your roster on the forward position. You're putting them back in their natural habitat, which could create a lot more offense, and it will create a lot better defensive play in a third period when you're leading, if you're leading.
Let's go through this lineup real quick. Matthew DeFrank's tweeting this out earlier today. Jeremy Rutherford going to join us in about 20 minutes to talk about Robert Thomas's addition to the lineup. Booch, Thomas, Kyrou, that is your top lineup morning skate today. Saad, Shin, and Neighbors will be skating on the second line together. Third line, Bolduc, Holloway, and Texier. I actually really like the construction of that line. I would prefer Joseph. He's clearly not 100% right now, so fine with going with Texier there. And then the fourth line is once again the WTF line. Worth noting, P.O. Joseph is skating once again today. It looks like he is serving as the extra for today.
JR just confirmed. Thomas said he is in tonight.
He's officially in.
He is officially back, according to Jeremy Rutherford.
I assumed that would be the case. They had him as the extra previously, but good to know 100% certainty Thomas back in the lineup. I like this construction of the lineup. Thomas, Shin, Holloway. I said this, I think it was 4 weeks ago, and this is not to toot my own horn to say that I was right. I'm wrong all the bleeping time. Wait until you hear our football pick'em reveal later on today.
Me too, man.
Holloway, you lose less with Holloway at center than you do when you put Booch at center. I wish they would have done this a while ago and just had like Shin, Holloway, Sonny, and Foxa as your four centers, but whatever. At least we got here. T-Bone, what do you think of the decisions that they've made with this lineup now that Thomas is back?
I like the decisions because I was with you guys. I like the fact that they decided to put Booch back out on the wing. We kind of talked about that yesterday of, okay, will they finally use this as the reason to do it? Remember, we saw I think it was one game during the stretch where Thomas was out where they put Buch on the wing. It didn't go well. They went right back to him back at center. I like this that they're going to put him back on the wing now. I don't mind. I like the second line because we talked about it. Shen Aberstad, they've been playing pretty well together. And then those third/fourth lines, I think those are fine. I don't mind Holloway centering that line. And the WTF line's been your energy line for you. So I like the combination that they're running with. And with Thomas being back and now Buch on the wing, you should be better defensively. Like, that's the number one area that in my opinion, they've missed him. Don't get me wrong, they've missed him offensively. They are a little worse with him without him offensively. But since the injury, they're the worst defensive team in hockey. You know, they've given up the most goals allowed per game since the injury to Robert Thomas. So now that you got Buch now back in his natural spot, you got Thomas who's back as your number one shutdown center, things should really start to tighten up defensively, and that's how this team stays in hockey games moving forward.
I can evaluate the rest of them now. That's what's nice about this. I can now look at Jordan Kyrou and say, okay, let's see what it looks like. I can look at Pavel Buchnevich and say, really for the first time all year, hey, man, welcome back. It's good to see you. We missed you. You're back to your natural position on the wing. It was never going to work at center. It became very clear, in my opinion, very quickly that was the case. Now I can find out, okay, where are we at the beginning of this long-term $8 million deal? That's what I'm maybe most excited about. I think there will be times where you see Neighbors bump up to that top line, Kyrou bump down to that second line. Maybe you see Saad going up. Maybe you see Holloway moving around. Like, you'll see other stuff that moves around, the stuff that I want to be stable. Thomas is always on that top line center. Not that that was ever going to change. Buch is always on that top line wing. Those are the two that I think are your pair on that top line. And then, honestly, I would really like to see them commit to this Holloway thing at center. I would like to see them just say, you know what, Dylan Holloway, you're going to be a center for the foreseeable future. That may change at some point down the road, but for right now, let's see what it looks like with him as your center. Hey, Bolduc, you're going to be there every night. Go out there and just play. Let's see what it looks like. Joseph, Texier, Sonny, Foxa, these are the guys that are going to be interchangeable depending on the night. But Bolduc's going to be in there every night. I like the way that the lineup is now constructed, Alex.
Yeah, I do too. I think when Sundqvist comes back, I would shift Holloway over to the wing just because that speed is an effective factor for the offense. But for right now, this is perfect for this team. There's a lot of people wondering, is it the third or the fourth line? My guess is you're going to see them evening out as they play because Bannister does trust that WTF line. Third period, you're probably going to see them more than the Holloway line.
Probably depends on the situation, right? If you're down by a goal, Holloway line's
Right.
your third line. If you're up by a goal or if you're tied, fourth line's going out there. They're going to go out there and give you the necessary defensive ability that you're lacking.
But as you just said, now you can evaluate Bolduc. Like, that's the part that you haven't been able to do. As much as we have been complaining about getting Bolduc in, Joey and I talked about this on Sunday's pregame, there's just, as much as it's about putting him in the lineup, there's not a whole lot of opportunities for him to do anything in the lineup when you're playing with Oscar Sundqvist, when you're playing 9 minutes a night.
But that's why I like Holloway at center.
I do. But you're not pulling anybody else off of that top nine. And so that's why with Joseph being out, whether it's a rest or whatever this might be, now you can let Bolduc actually just work. And I'm with you. Holloway provides speed. I don't know how responsible he is on the center side in terms of his own end. But I would imagine as a third line, you're not worried about that. You get mismatches on home ice. You tell them to just go out there and create puck possession. So I like the way that they're putting this together. This is all surrounded by Thomas and Buchnevich, though, because if they had Buch still at the center spot and pushed Shen down to the third, I'd still be upset because I don't think you're benefiting your team as well as you are now, putting Pavel Buchnevich back on the wing.
Totally agree. And my hope is this is the end of the Buch at center position experiment.
Yeah.
We don't have to go back to that. It's now in our past.
I think he's hoping that's true.
Because he said before, I don't care where you put me, just put me there and leave me there. And I don't want this bumping back and forth between center wing, center wing, center wing. Okay, cool. It sounds great. We can do that now. You are officially a winger. And if they go through a bunch of injuries again, maybe you have to reevaluate. But if Robert Thomas and Braden Shen are in the lineup, Pavel Buchnevich is that wing. Period. End of story. That's how they should be approaching this over the next really 6 years, but certainly for the next 6 months.
Whoa.
I'm done.
No, he's right. He's right.
He's not a center, and that's okay.
And he shouldn't be
I think
used
he's
as a
going to
center.
center against the Sharks on the second line.
I don't.
It's a Bannister move if I've seen it.
I don't. I think this is going to be exactly what they talked about when they put him there at the beginning, where they're like, look, we're committing to this. We want to see what it looks like. You committed to it, albeit it was only for 20 games, but you committed to it. And now you're shifting away from it because you're suffering without Pavel Buchnevich. Whoever the analytics guy, the BK nerd that was sitting in the press box watching last season and be like, oh, we had a 600 winning percentage when he's on the ice. That's gone now.
Thank God.
You don't have the offense without Pavel Buchnevich on the wing. And frankly, you don't have the defense. If we're going to brag about how he's one of the most underrated two-way forwards in the National Hockey League, BK thinks he's such an incredible penalty killer, and he is. Stop using him at the center position because he's better on offense and he's better at shutting down the opposition when he's on the wing playing defense.
A little bit of news to pass along. This comes from the NFL. The New York Jets have officially fired general manager Joe Douglas.
Oh, I thought you were about to say they fired their interim coach. I was like, wow.
They fire their quarterback?
They should. I do wonder if that's what's happening here. They fired the coach. They fired the GM. There's one of two scenarios that takes place next. One, RFK Jr. is going to be the next GM of the New York Jets. That's in play.
I think he's a little busy.
Two, who knows? Two, Aaron Rodgers is going to be the next GM of the New York
GM?
Jets.
Oh, my God. I'm so
Three,
dumb.
I should have mentioned there were three scenarios here. Three, Aaron Rodgers is done after this year, and the Jets are cleaning house completely, and they are just going to start anew going into next season. I'm not sure which of those is most likely. I feel like they all have, 3-1 odds, but that appears to be the direction that they're heading right now. Interesting. I'm a little surprised they made this move now. I'm not sure what the timing does for them, but the Jets have made it official. They have fired general manager Joe Douglas, Alex.
Good. I think everybody in the New York Jets organization should be fired.
See, I feel bad for Joe.
I don't.
Do you?
You
Joe didn't get to run an operation.
You traded
He
for
wanted-
Devontae Adams.
Yeah, because Aaron Rodgers made him do
You
it.
traded for Aaron Rodgers.
Hey, man, he knew what he was signing up for.
I get it. I feel bad for Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh, even though Saleh got fired weeks ago, because those two didn't really get a chance to run an organization, right? Woody Johnson, the owner, came in and said, we're going to go get Aaron Rodgers. And then Aaron Rodgers showed up and said, let's go get my best friends.
I don't feel bad for. I feel worse for Robert Saleh than I do for Joe Douglas. You're the general manager. If Aaron Rodgers comes in and tells you to do something, you know what you say? No, go back and be the
And
quarterback.
He probably never had a conversation with Rodgers. You know why? Because Rodgers probably went to ownership and got the deal done with whatever
I
he
believe
wanted
that.
to.
But ultimately, you signed up for it, and there were some real benefits that could have come along with this. You traded for a future Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the best that I've ever seen to do it. I have all of my personal asides, and it's legitimately not political. It's just I think Aaron Rodgers is a jerk.
Take a day off and then you're back.
But setting all of that aside, you had to make the trade. It was the move. Aaron Rodgers was available. You're the Jets. You haven't had a quarterback in 20 years since Chad Pennington was a shell of himself, and now you've got the guy. And then you had to go all in on him being the guy. And then he breaks everything in his ankle. And then this year he has been a shell of himself again. So it was the right move at the time. It just has been a complete disaster. What was more of a disaster? The Rodgers tenure in New York or the Russ tenure in Denver? Rodgers, right?
I'd say
Rodgers.
Because I think Rodgers was
Russ never
pulling all the strings.
Yeah, Russ never had Super Bowl aspirations with the Denver Broncos.
Ooh, hard disagree.
Yeah, I think
When they traded for him, they really went in for him.
I didn't think there was any Super Bowl. You went after it, but there was no chance. The way the New York Jets, when they got Aaron Rodgers, was like, this is a Super Bowl favorite in the AFC.
There was more hype for them, but I think the expectations were very real for the Broncos when they made that move, especially after they then make the move. The first year was a disaster, but then they go out and get Sean Payton, the Super Bowl winning coach, and there were
the Sean Payton, the first year that they acquired Wilson, I didn't feel it. When they got Payton, that's when it's like, okay, you're going all in on this.
Fair enough. But yeah, it's over for them now. They're 3-8. They're in their bye week. They're going up against Seattle next week, and then they've got Miami, Jacksonville, your Rams, Buffalo on the road, and then Miami to finish out the year. There might be 2 wins left on that schedule. As of today, they would have the number 7 overall pick. If they finish 5-12, probably picking in the top 5, and they might be able to go out there and get a quarterback. It's not a great class, but it's entirely possible that the Jets decide to blow this thing up and go with the quarterback in next year's class.
Does Rodgers go into a darkness retreat on the bye week?
Oh, yeah,
Probably.
he's not there.
Yeah, he's
No
totally.
chance.
Rodgers probably has no idea that they just fired the GM, right? That's what he's going to say. Oh, I found out what you guys
Well,
did.
and he's not going to accept responsibility for something like this, and it's just unnecessary to do that to him.
He's probably going, who's Joe Douglas?
Never
Oh,
talked
that was
to
our
the guy.
GM.
I'm the captain now.
He's Alex T-Bone. I'm BK. In 15 minutes, we're talking to Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic. We'll get his thoughts on the very quick return from Robert Thomas, what it means for the Blues in their lineup, and were they able to stay afloat enough to really have playoff aspirations still upon his return? We'll talk to JR about all of that and so much more coming up at 11:30. We'll hear from you guys. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube, the chat, ready to go over there. YouTube.com/101ESPN-STL. But coming up next, saw a list earlier today, Alex, of the top quarterbacks in the SEC. and it made me do some internal thinking about what the future looks like for the University of Missouri. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at Classic Air Care. Have been making people comfortable since 1926. And whether you've got a brand new unit that you want to make sure can last you as long as they typically do, or you got a 26-year-old unit that just needs to get a couple more years out of, Classic Air Care is the company for you. With knowledgeable technicians that come out and can explain everything to you so that you know what you need, what you don't need, all the way up to incredible customer service, timely responses, and getting somebody out there when you need an appointment. That's what Classic Air Care has to offer you. And you can check out the over 3,000 reviews up on Google, a 4.8 rating like this one from Diane. Nick definitely was a miracle on a freezing cold day. Had the heater up and running for us in an hour. Kind, polite, respectful, and explained everything that we needed to know. So call Classic Air Care today, or you can schedule online. Check out their maintenance agreement that is going to put you at the priority list when you need some type of issue fixed for your HVAC system. Just tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. Classic Air Care and classicaircare.com.
Pressure up the middle. Cook lobs it. It is Cole. It's Kapanen. Touchdown, Tigers. It'll be the last play. It's intercepted. Overthrown and a South Carolina takeaway. Jalen Kilgore. And what a finish for the Cox.
Thankfully, I didn't have to watch that live, Alex. I was at a wedding over the weekend, and there was a father of the bride speech that lasted roughly 25 minutes. I'm not exaggerating. I think
What?
that actually might have been short.
Did you get up and leave and boycott the rest of that wedding?
Nope. So I occasionally would be like looking down to check the score because I wasn't anticipating a 25-minute speech. So I'd look down, check the score, and I'd say, oh, Mizzou just went up. Luther Bird, and that was a huge play. And then my wife would give me the nudge. Like, Brandon, stop. He's talking. He's still talking. So, yeah, I didn't get to see the entirety of that game. I saw up until the fourth quarter, and then all of the fun started, and I stopped watching. So that audio courtesy of SEC Network. It sounds like, based on the highlights that I watched afterwards, Brady Cook was pretty good. Pretty good overall in that game, Alex. And they had no chance without him. Thankfully, he was able to go out there and play. But ultimately, South Carolina had the better quarterback, and that was a huge part of what led them to win. And that's the backdrop to our conversation that I would like to have today, because Aaron Murray, former SEC quarterback with Georgia, put out his top 11 quarterbacks in the SEC. Now, I don't know why he stopped at 11, but he stopped at 11. I'm guessing that's because that was his number in college. I'm not sure. So he put out his top 11 quarterbacks in the SEC. I will read them in order for you. Number 1, Jackson Dart at Ole Miss. Number 2, Jalen Milroe. Number 3, Lenore Sellers, who Mizzou fans saw over the weekend. That guy is awesome. Redshirt freshman, he's a stud. Number 4, DJ Lagway, freshman at Florida. Number 5, Carson Beck. Number 6, Quinn Ewers, who was the second best quarterback on his own team, but I digress. Number 7, Garrett Nussmeier. Number 8, Nico. Number 9, Marcel Reed. Number 10, Diego Pavia. And number 11, Talon Green with Arkansas.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Brady Cook there.
Yeah, somebody's missing
You were
from this
building
list.
it up like,
I'm
and
sure
number
he's
11,
number 12.
Brady Cook.
Also listed, Brady Cook.
I don't think so.
I don't know that to be true, but
He was in the category of also consideration Brady Cook, and he
yeah.
didn't get anything.
probably where Mizzou is in the rankings, right? Also receiving votes.
So Drink needs to stop yelling at me when I complain about his quarterbacks then.
The reason why I bring this up is because, Alex, I had to do some introspection after looking at this list. It's really hard to argue that Brady Cook should be in the top 11. It's really hard to do. I mean, you look at Diego Pavia, who I think is one of the best quarterbacks in college football over the last few years. He's at 10 on this list. Well, if I think he's better than Brady, and I think it's definitive, there's no doubt about it. Like, if Diego Pavia got another year of eligibility next year, I would take him in a heartbeat at Mizzou. It's hard for me to say that Brady Cook's better than that. And when I look at this list, it's just a bunch of dudes that have futures in the NFL, and Diego Pavia, who's a stud, and then really young quarterbacks like Nico, Marcel Reed, Talon Green, who have upside remaining, like untapped potential. I think as a Mizzou fan, I underestimated, and I owe an apology to Tanner for this, I underestimated how much Mizzou was lacking at the quarterback position relative to the rest of the SEC. I think Brady's had a decent season. I think since he's come back from the injury, we've seen the gamer mentality, the toughness on full display, and he's got all of that in spades. Unfortunately, what he doesn't have is the cannon of an arm that Jalen Milroe or Lenore Sellers or DJ Lagway have, or the accuracy that at times Carson Beck has, or some of the like big play potential that Garrett Nussmeier has, or the legs that Marcel Reed and Talon Green have. Those guys all have a trump card that, quite frankly, Brady Cook just doesn't have. And as you get towards the end of the season and I start thinking about what the future holds for Mizzou at that position, because right now I don't know what it is, they need a dude. They've got to go out into the portal this offseason and get ready to spend big-time money for whoever one of the top 5 quarterbacks is that hits that market. You want to go out there and get a stud? You're going to have to pay $1 million+ to be able to get one. And maybe that's a guy that hasn't really seen the field, that was a former blue-chip recruit. Some of those guys will hit the portal. Maybe it's a dude that was a solid but unspectacular quarterback like, what's-his-face, Jackson Dart at his previous stop, who came from USC to Ole Miss. You got to be willing to go out there and make the big move this offseason. That's got to be the plan. The game has changed in the SEC. It is no longer about running games and defense. Now it's about having that quarterback that can take you to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, it's the area that you just underwhelmed with this season, because we saw the running game be really effective for Mizzou early on. We saw Luther Burden at times show up and make plays despite his quarterback not connecting. And I talked about this yesterday. Your defense was more impressive than I was expecting it to be. The part that underwhelmed you from start to finish this season was Brady Cook. Everything that you described of how he doesn't have that, cannon of an arm or the ability to just get out of trouble and pick up a first down, you were describing an average game manager, an average quarterback, and I think that's what Brady Cook was. Last season was like the best of Brady Cook, and you just clicked in all cylinders, and you got everything working for Mizzou. And where I fell, and I can only assume you did as well, BK, where I fell victim to was watching that thinking, oh, well, he can carry that over next season.
Or get better.
Yeah.
Like, this is now who Brady Cook is, and there's possible upside from this. And the truth is, I probably undersold how many of those 50-50 balls went in his direction last year, and this year it's gone the other way.
And the tape was just out on him, too, to where people knew how to handle Brady Cook. So you're right. I think as optimistic as I am with an Eli Drinkowitz, who did find a way to get this program out of a cellar in terms of just being a 5 or 6 win team. And look, if you get 9 wins, still a good season. but you've got to find a way to get that quarterback. You've got to do whatever it takes because you've shown you can recruit players in other positions. You can bring in the big-time stars at the wide receiver route, the cornerback, the line route. You got to go get a quarterback, and you got to find a way to click on the right one.
We've had a couple of texts. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Somebody from the 618 says, BK does know that Mizzou has a 5-star quarterback coming in, right? First of all, 4-star. Second of all,
Gotcha.
He's supposed to be very good. Look across the country, go show me how many freshman quarterbacks you can look around and say that guy's a stud as a freshman. It almost never happens. It's incredibly rare.
And just to that point real quick, the first freshman that comes to mind for me in that category is the Nico kid at Tennessee.
Yes.
And he was great in non-con. He's not been very good in
He's
conference
also a
play.
redshirt freshman, I believe. I
Yeah,
think
I
last
believe
year was
that's
true redshirt freshman season, or his true freshman season. This year he's a redshirt. The same thing is true for Sellers at South Carolina. He's a freshman by classification, but he was on campus last year, and then this year is his first year as a regular player for them. I would think that's possible for Matt Zollers, who's their 4-star quarterback that's committed right now. He also broke his ankle this year. So he's going to be going through some rehab stuff of like getting himself back on track physically. And then, of course, you've got Sam Horn, who had Tommy John surgery, and I have no idea what he's going to look like coming back from that.
He's going to throw
So,
harder.
I think his future's probably in baseball more so than it is in football. I do not believe their starter next season is currently on the roster. I do not believe he's currently a commit. I believe that the starting quarterback for the University of Missouri for 2025 is currently on another roster elsewhere, and they're going to have to go pay the price that is necessary to be able to bring them in. That's how college football works now, man. Like this is the name of the game. Even if you do have a stud coming in, we got to recruit over him, and then hopefully that guy sticks with us. And a lot of the time, guy's going to leave because he didn't get the reps as a freshman. He goes elsewhere, and then he goes on to your Illinois dude. That's what happened to him. He was at Ole Miss. He ended up stuck behind Jackson Dart. He transfers to Illinois, gets his opportunity there. He's been really good.
Yeah.
It's worked out for them.
And he had significant growing pains in year one. Like last year, he was not very good. I was skeptical of him being the starting quarterback coming into this year. It's part of the reason I thought they were a 6-win program. And this year, he's been fantastic. He's not anything that's like scorched earth.
But he's good.
But he's been a top 10 quarterback, top 7 quarterback in the Big Ten.
I think he's a pretty similar, comparable guy to Brady Cook as college quarterbacks. Both of them bring something with their legs. Both of them at times can be a bit scattershot. But when they're on, you saw it in the fourth quarter, Brady Cook can play, man. He's not bad. He's just not at the same level as Lenore Sellers.
Yeah.
This offseason, the goal for Eli Drinkwitz should be, let's go get one of those. Let's go get a dude that can play at that level. And when I say one of those, I mean like franchise caliber quarterbacks. That's what Mizzou should have on their shopping list, the top of the shopping list going into this offseason. And I expect them to be aggressive. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. But next, we got some questions for Jeremy Rutherford, our Blues insider for The Athletic, when he joins us here on BK and Ferrario.
Tanner Hendrickson here with the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight as they host the Minnesota Wild. And we'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Graber for puck drop at 7. And Blues centerman Robert Thomas will return to the ice and center the top line with Pavel Buccigross and Jordan Kyrou in tonight's game. And our Blues insider Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic will join us coming up next here on BK and Ferrario. This Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN, and we got some big news for the St. Louis Blues as they are expecting Robert Thomas back in the lineup this evening. We go to the 101 ESPN hotline to be joined by our friend Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic, to talk it all over. The phone line is presented by Callier and Thompson. Jer, appreciate the time, man. Were you surprised to see Thomas back on the ice, not just skating with the team, but as a top-line center for the Blues today?
Well, I think when you see him on the ice last week and you know Robert Thomas, you know he wants to be back as soon as he can, BK. But if you step back and look at the big picture, I think you have to be surprised. I mean, the injury happened on October 22nd. He was placed on IR the next day. They said he'd be reevaluated in 4 to 6 weeks, and here we are 1 day short of just 4 weeks. So, you know, a lot of times the players go into that reevaluation period, and that could be another week or two. So to have a fractured ankle and be back out on the ice, skating, playing on the top line tonight against the Minnesota Wild, I think everybody's got to be surprised with this return and how quick it happened.
It's Jared, sorry to interrupt. I got way too excited. I jumped the gun there. But by no means am I making you a medical expert here. But the one question I think we have seen so much of is Robert Thomas shouldn't be coming back this fast. He's going to suffer from what Torrey Krug is suffering from right now.
So here's the situation, and I hope people are familiar with what happened with Torrey Krug. You know, he had the fractured ankle as the Zamboni gets ready to drive by, right, guys? But he had the fractured ankle, but it was a situation where over time, everyone, whether you're an athlete, not an athlete, you have arthritis, and it builds up. And so you had that pre-arthritic change in the condition of his ankle, and eventually it led to a situation where he had no choice but to have the surgery that he had. You know, Robert Thomas, a younger guy, he has the fracture. It heals. You know, you're not dealing with the arthritis right now. Look, Torrey Krug came back from his injury, you know, not as quick as this, but relatively quick after it happened years ago. So I just talked to Robert Thomas about this situation. I said, hey, are you coming back too quick? Do you need to, watch your ice time? Do you need to be careful with this situation? And guys, other than taking another puck to the ankle or some catastrophic injury where there's a collision or, you know, something happens along those lines, just playing hockey and the actual skating out there isn't going to damage this ankle any further. He said that the doctors are on board with this. He's on board with it. And one other note is when he was out, he went to Toronto and had some doctors do some work. So this is a guy who's pushed really hard. He's put the time in. To quote Robert Thomas, he said, I've invested in myself the last few weeks and put myself in this position.
Wow, that's, really impressive work by him in all seriousness. What does this mean for the Blues, JR? Because you get a top-line center back, that's a really big deal. I feel like the secondary piece to it, though, is Pavel Buccigross gets to move off of the center position, and he gets to play his natural spot on the wing. What do you make of what this all means for the Blues and their lineup construction?
Well, I think that's just the added bonus for the Blues to be able to push Buccigross to the wing where when he's played over there, and especially when he's played with Thomas and Kyrou, he's just looked fantastic. I think that's where you're going to get the offense from him. So you were hoping that when Thomas did return, they'd be able to make this move. They are making it tonight against the Minnesota Wild. If you didn't see the line combinations, people listening, it is Buccigross on the left, Kyrou on the right. And, guys, not only this, but this ailing Blues power play is going to make an adjustment tonight with Thomas coming back. You're going to see Robert Thomas on the top, running the point. And Drew Bannister said that he might not stay up there all the time, but they want a lot more movement from that power play. As we all know, the Blues could certainly use that. And who better to do it than Robert Thomas up there running the quarterback position.
So, JR, not to pull the optimism card here, but you do get Robert Thomas back in a really timely fashion to where you went 4-7-1 without him. Not exactly 500, but pretty close to it in terms of point percentage. Could this be a spark for St. Louis in terms of putting themselves back into the conversation?
Yeah, I think with the playoff picture, you're gonna see this team win some games, lose some games, and we're gonna be talking about, the potential of the playoffs, I think, for a while. I think this is gonna stretch out. But in the near future, tonight, 7 o'clock puck drop against the Minnesota Wild, this is a huge boost for the team. Look, you could see it on the faces when they lost Robert Thomas and Philip Broberg about the same time. How are we going to get through this? And obviously there's some adrenaline those first few games, and then you see it start to catch up to the team. So to see Robert Thomas on the ice tonight, not only on the ice but center in that top line, run the QB on the power play, I think is going to be a huge boost for this team. And certainly, when you get him back on the ice and eventually get Broberg back, maybe in December, you definitely increase those chances. But, the Blues have some other players who need to play well and step up. 2 of them who aren't playing tonight, Matthew Joseph and Oscar Sundqvist, are going to be out of the lineup. And Drew Bannister just said that, he's had some conversations with them, and those are going to stay between the coach and the players, he said. But, it can't just be Robert Thomas and eventually Philip Broberg. If this team's going to make the playoffs, they need all these guys.
Jeremy Rutherford is our guest here on 101 ESPN. He joins us each and every Tuesday on BK and Ferrario. And over on The Athletic, you can read his great work. He had a piece up earlier today paying tribute to Jordan Binnington as he stands on the brink of Blues history. Jordan Binnington tonight has a chance to be able to tie Mike Liut for the most wins by a goalie in Blues franchise history. What does this potentially mean for Benner? If it's tonight, later on this week, whatever it may be in terms of the timing of it, what do you think this is going to mean to him?
Yeah, first of all, any way I can get out of writing an article. So this time with Mike Liut being his agent, I said, hey, Mike, how about you write this article? And, Mike went to Bowling Green. I think he's got the law degree. So he said, yeah, I'll write it. How many words you need? So that piece is up. It's Mike Liut's words, not mine, on Jordan Binnington, who many people probably know is his client. He's known Jordan Binnington since he was 16 years old. So I thought it was a really eloquent letter that Mike Liut wrote. What is it going to mean? I think this is going to mean more than your average milestone, more than your average record breaker. Like ever since I've been covering the Blues, obviously 2005, this record predates that, 20 years. So you thought that, a guy like Curtis Joseph, then eventually Jake Allen looked like he'd take the record, and then he gets traded just a couple wins before he breaks Mike Liut's record. And now to have Jordan Binnington, who we all know is the Stanley Cup champion in 2019. But when you read this article that Mike wrote, the behind-the-scenes perseverance that Jordan put in, Mike is so proud of his client and ready to hand that record off to him, to Jordan Binnington. He's got a chance to tie it tonight and then could break it later this week.
JR, final quick one from me. You mentioned Broberg. Have you heard any update on either Broberg or Leddy?
I have not. I have not seen either of them in person. I have not seen them skating, obviously. The Leddy thing, still remains a mystery. Drew Bannister gave an update on that recently, just saying that it's lingered and lingered, so they're going to wait till he's completely healthy. And then with Broberg, have not seen him. So I still think, everybody might get excited with Robert Thomas returning within that 4 to 6 week reevaluation period sooner than later, but I don't think that we will see Broberg until probably that 4 to 6 week period hits with him.
Hey, multiple jolts to the system.
Yeah.
You get one guy back at a time. You take him as you can. You got Robert Thomas back in the lineup tonight. That is more than enough for now. JR will certainly be reading all of your great work over at The Athletic, following you along on Twitter as well, at JP Rutherford. All the best. Talk to you again next week, my friend.
Yep, thanks, boys.
Absolutely. That's Jeremy Rutherford joining us as he does each and every Tuesday here on BK and Ferrario. Appreciate his time as always. Alex, we're going to talk about this a lot more, I would imagine, tomorrow with the Jordan Binnington storyline and the potential of him tying Mike Liut as the winningest goalie in franchise history, and soon enough passing him. He will eventually, knock on wood, become the winningest goalie in franchise history. What's this mean to you? I mean, you've been able to follow along. This is probably the first player that will have this kind of a milestone, I would imagine, that you've been there for covering day to day throughout every game of his NHL career. So for you, you've had basically a front row past all of this. What's this like for you to be able to watch?
It's impressive. I mean, the guy that I thought was going to do something like Binnington is doing is Pietrangelo. I thought he was going to set the record in terms of games played as a member of the St. Louis Blues, surpassing Bernie Federko. And I think if he would have remained with St. Louis, he would have either hit it or getting close to it. I didn't expect Jordan Binnington to be that guy. I mean, it was a really good. I know it was a really good piece by JR that I don't want to spoil for people, but like This was a guy that was the fourth man on the depth chart for the Blues the year that they won the Cup. Like, he came to camp. He was the fourth guy on the chart. Marty Brodeur told him, like, hey, you're going back to the American Hockey League. And then, lo and behold, he was loaned to the Boston Bruins AHL team. And then he gets called up and he goes on this run. The crazy part for me is you can always say, like, will the record ever be broken? And, like, Binnington's doing this, and I don't think anybody thought they would once Liut said it. But Binnington's got 2 more years after this season as a member of the St. Louis Blue, and I don't see them looking at him and being like, hey, you're going to be a backup this season. He's going to still probably get you somewhere between 25 and 30 wins. So you're going to talk about 2 more years of Jordan Binnington setting this up. Any Blues fan, long Blues fan knows what I'm about to say. This Blues team has suffered from the lack of goaltender for a long time. Whether it's been Jake Allen, Brian Elliott, Carter Hutton, like, they've been good, but they haven't been the guy to get the Blues over the hump. Jordan Binnington not only did that, but now he's going to go down as the most winningest goalie and might stay there for a very long time as a member of the Blues. It's a very impressive feat, and as a Blues fan, it's kind of cool to see take place.
We're hoping to have Mike Liut on our show. We'll also have, it sounds like, Doug Armstrong at some point this week as well. So certainly plenty more discussion on all of that here on BK and Ferrario. If you missed any of our conversation with Jeremy Rutherford, check it out on the podcast page after the show today. 101ESPN.com. The free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
But coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. This one comes from the 314. Guys, I still have Lamar as my MVP. His stats are absolutely ridiculous, but it seems like Josh Allen is closing in fast. Who would you have beyond those two, though? Barkley, Goff? Who are you putting into the conversation right now?
Jared Goff's third.
As of today, just Vegas odds, it's Josh Allen as the favorite, plus 125. Lamar Jackson is next at 2-1, and then it's Goff, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. Those are the top 5 right now. Yeah. Justin Herbert 6th, Kyler Murray 7th.
Man, would you have Jalen Hurts over Saquon? I personally...
Am I projecting who can win the award, or am I saying who I would have
Who's the MVP of the Philadelphia Eagles?
Because they become two different conversations, because if you're not a quarterback at this point, you're ineligible for the award.
So stupid.
I think it's dumb, but if we're having the conversation of who I think should be the MVP, I would have Saquon over Jalen Hurts this year.
Yeah, I would too. But I actually agree with those rankings. I would have Josh Allen as 1. Now, Lamar can take it back. It's going to come down to who's the best team in the AFC at the end of the season, I believe. Jared Goff would be my number 3. I don't know if Goff can surpass either Jackson or Allen, mostly because of the interceptions that Jared Goff has had this season.
And beyond that, those guys just make more plays for their teams.
Well, and I mean, Lamar Jackson and both Josh Allen are mobile, and Jared Goff is not.
So I know nobody's going to agree with me on this, and that's totally fine. Another one that I would throw into the mix, he's not going to win it. His team has too many losses on the season.
I know who you're going with.
Burrow's got to be in the conversation, man.
I would have him second right now.
He's been so freaking good. There was a really good tweet that was thrown out there the other day. 19 instances this season where a quarterback threw for at least 250 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. 250 plus, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. The win-loss record for those quarterbacks: Joe Burrow, 0-3. All other quarterbacks, 14-2. So Burrow on the season has more losses when throwing 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions than every other quarterback in the league that has done that so far this year. That's not him being a problem. That is his defense being horrific and them not having enough around him right now. So I think Burrow's been great. I think he's more than deserving of I would have him above Patrick Mahomes, for example. I think it's crazy that Mahomes should even be in this conversation. I think he's having a fine year. His scrambling's been great, but he's not up there with Goff, Lamar, Josh Allen, or to me, Joe Burrow.
I'd agree with that. To me, Lamar's still 1. I don't think Allen's caught him yet. I think it's Lamar 1, Burrow 2, Allen 3. That would be the way that I would order it.
Lamar, personally.
I just think Lamar's been the better quarterback this season. I know he didn't play well against the Steelers, but I think we're propping up Josh Allen just because we had lower expectations for the Bills.
I think that's part of it. I think his supporting cast is definitely part of it.
And I just think when you look at what Lamar's done, where he's rushed for, 600 yards almost, and he's thrown more yards than Josh Allen, and he's thrown only 3 picks to his 25 touchdown passes, I'm sorry, Lamar's the guy for me. I think he deserves the MVP more than Josh Allen.
That's fair. Those would be the guys that I would throw into the conversation. I do not think there's been a defensive player this year that is deserving of even being talked about. Do you guys agree with that?
I agree.
Which is strange, because to begin the season, it was mostly about defense and how defense had been taking over the league. I
think Hutchinson would have been in that conversation, but then he broke his leg.
What's TJ Watt been doing? I mean, I'm asking that question. So
he's not putting up the volume statistics to be a part of it. He has 7.5 sacks on the season.
I was going to say, if there's a player that would win it on the defensive side, it's either TJ Watt or somebody from Denver. But the fact that I can't definitively tell you,
guy defensively on Denver, he's been a stud, but I don't think he's this good.
Neither of those guys are doing what Aiden Hutchinson did last year, or what Aaron Donald has done in the past, or even Micah Parsons last year. Nobody's on that level.
Henry and Barkley would be the other 2 guys that I would throw into the mix. Yeah. Probably not this high, but I would still have
Allen Jackson and Goff as the top 3. That would be my top 3.
It is a little wild that there's not really a wide receiver that comes in this conversation, because I feel like every year there's one. Was it last year or 2 years ago? It was Tyreek
for the first half.
CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah. But this year, it's just maybe it's because it's been the year from hell for wide receivers injury-wise.
Number 1 in the league in receiving yards this year. Do you guys know who it is?
I don't know.
I have no freaking
idea. Is it St. Brown?
Chase. Oh, he's got 1,000 yards so far.
That one game he went off for 400 yards.
Number 2 is Justin Jefferson with 900. Number 3 in the league right now.
Is it Nico Collins?
No. Nico missed too many games.
I know, but Nico was up there. I think 2 weeks into his injury, he was 3rd still in yards receiving.
I would think like St. Brown.
Yeah, I was going to
He's
say
been
St.
really
Brown.
Amon-Ra is 12th with 685. The gap between Amon-Ra and third is the same as the gap between third and Justin Jefferson, which is second.
good. Jeez. I have no idea who would be.
CeeDee Lamb.
Is it CD?
CeeDee Lamb is 3, George Pickens 4, Zay Flowers is 5th in the league in receiving yards this year.
I'm glad to hear Pickens was high because I almost said him
He's
for
been
third.
so good.
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb,
ridiculous.
talk about flying under the radar.
I feel like every week George Pickens has one of those plays that you watch and you're like, there's one guy on earth that can make that play, and it's strangely George Pickens.
He nearly had one against the Ravens in the end zone where he had like 2 guys on him, and he came down with it, but it fell out as soon as he hit the ground.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. I know you guys talked about this a bit yesterday, Alex. I was listening at home. You guys did a good show
Thanks,
together.
man.
Yeah, good work yesterday.
I think we work so well when it's me and beat T-Bone.
When there's nobody with a tone problem.
Yeah. We don't get very Tony with each other, do we?
Pretty smooth sailing.
No, we don't get Tony.
T-Bone had a little bit of a tone yesterday.
When?
Just in general.
Whoa.
Little bit of a tone.
Well, look at who he works with, right?
I think it might be.
You rub
maybe-
off on both of us because I had a tone over the weekend.
Did you really?
Yeah, I get freaking tones every once in a while. Even my wife, Katie, turned to me. She's like, "Did you just have a tone?" I'm like, "No."
Did I? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
I have that effect on people. Suddenly you start saying stuff and you're like,
Now you're making it come home into my house, BK. You're bringing it into my family's home.
from the 314, is Perunovic starting to evolve into the player that we hoped that he would become? My answer to that is a definitive no, but I'm curious where you guys go. I think he's had a couple of really nice games, and that's all I'm willing to go with.
I don't know if it's a definitive no, but the player I thought he was going to be was a top 4 defenseman, and he's not playing that way. Like 4 games has been a really good sample size, and you could tell he's more confident, and it does come with scoring that goal. He's shooting more, which he was not doing prior. He's at least responsible in his own end, but you know what he still looks like to me? A third-pair defenseman that can contribute offensively. I envisioned him being somebody, and we talked about it, Doug Armstrong even referenced it, I envisioned him somebody that you could throw up there with Colton Parayko. I envisioned it like a Vince Dunn, and you have not been there yet.
Yeah,
I think he's a third pair defenseman.
I agree with that.
But he looks like somebody he looks like somebody that I'm not like, oh, geez, Perunovic is back in
How
the
long
lineup
have
now.
you felt that? Like
Since
2
the
games?
Washington Capitals game when he scored the goal.
Yeah, I mean that's
it's 5
just
games, but
it's such a small sample size, and in those games, by the way, they've lost almost every single one. Of them.
The hard part with it too is, like, I have to remind myself it's only been like 87 games he's played in the National Hockey League, so like it does take some time, and I don't think he's ever going to hit what we thought he was going to be. But again, at least he's not a liability when he's in the lineup.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think he's ever going to get to the spot that we thought he could be when they drafted him. But I think now is the first time that I've really looked at and said, maybe there is a role for him moving forward. And it is as the third pair defenseman. But it's the first time I've thought that.
That's right.
And to your point of like him not playing a ton of career games in the NHL, and I just go back to like you just need that one moment to click, and then maybe your career can take off from there. That's kind of what I wonder if we're watching. Now, he may revert back to being himself where you're like, you've got to get him out of the lineup. But as of right now, I'm willing to at least watch it, see what he does, and at least still dream on what he could be here in St. Louis.
And that Capitals game is what T-Bone's referencing. That was the moment where it was like, oh, something clicked. He scored that goal, and then everything felt like he took a deep breath. He was playing more calm in his own end. He was making plays. He's taking shots. That's what you wanted from when you drafted him.
All right, last thing here from the 636 guys. Why should Burden and Weiss finish out the season? Very simple, because they made a commitment to their team.
Yeah.
That's it. They won't play in the bowl game, nor should they. Everybody should opt out of the bowl game. These things don't matter unless you're in the college football playoff. T-Bone's 100% correct on that.
Thank you.
But I think we've gone way too far in this whole, like, stop playing. Yeah, your team's not playing. No, you are. You're playing for something. You're playing because you committed to it. Like, when I was growing up, I know this is back in my day. When I was growing up, my mom would say, like, hey, if you commit to something, you got to finish it out. That's what this is. Like,
if Kylies are not quitters.
Kylie Quitter. It's the same letter.
If you're Luther Burden, you've got 2 games left in your collegiate career. Go out there and play your ass off. You just had a legit moment against South Carolina because you played. You could still get to 9-3 this season. It's not the ultimate goal that they were expecting for the year. That's still a damn good season. You could win 20 games over the course of 2 years. That is your legacy at Mizzou, is you made that happen. You made it cool to go back to Mizzou again. Like, whatever happens over the next 5 years, if they're able to take this and, like, step on your shoulders, you were one that made that possible. But winning games is still a big part of that. Recruits see that. They want to see the 9 wins this year, the double-digit victory season last year. So that's why you keep playing if you're Luther Burden and Theo Weiss, because it's a pretty cool legacy to be able to have 20-plus wins over the course of a two-year stretch. So that's why. All right, coming up next, there was a report earlier today that I saw, and I was like, I wonder if this means that the Cardinals will change their philosophy. Not now, but over the next 5 years. We'll talk about that, what it could mean for them, long-lasting implications next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK. So I was reading earlier today, Alex, there was a really good piece over on MLB.com from Mark Feinsand. And he was, is my mic good?
No.
Yeah.
Can we, full disclosure, we good?
I don't know.
I can't tell. Okay,
I
think we're good.
Give it time, though.
Yeah, don't touch it.
And we're good. All right, so Juan Soto is the big free agent this year. And when you read about it, it's typically like, oh, the New York teams, the Dodgers. Apparently, the Dodgers are expected to have their full pitch to him here pretty soon. Please don't go there. Please, Soto.
What's that pitch? Hey, man, we'll defer your contracts like Shohei.
You're cool with like 600 of your 650 being paid like in 10 years.
You get to hit in between Shohei and Mookie and Freddie.
That would be ridiculous.
I can't wait. I actually want to see it. It'd be fun.
Is that worse than KD going to the Warriors? Because KD went to the Warriors after they lost.
I think KD was worse.
Yeah, I think KD was. And I think people
finals?
hated KD at the time. I don't think people hate Juan Soto.
I feel like it's different in general for baseball. Who's like the most hated baseball player right now? Is there one that's as hated as like the most?
I think Machado's up there right now.
You think?
Oh, yeah. Machado just...
Really?
He gets under my skin. Yeah.
Not your skin,
like
though, the common baseball fan.
Yeah. Machado, I think Tatis is up there, too.
I feel like Tatis is more hated on his own team than Machado. I feel like Machado was more hated earlier in his career because all of the antics and whatnot. I feel like he's still got up to that image, no?
God, don't you remember when we had like Yasiel Puig and he was hated around Major League Baseball?
Oh, there used to be real villains.
Yeah, there used to be guys you hate.
Necessarily anymore.
Brandon Phillips, people hated.
So
Castellanos when there's an awkward moment.
Niger Morgan.
Oh yeah, Morgan.
Maybe this is just a reflection on us. You have to be like good to get into the hated conversation, and the Cardinals haven't been good recently. So
that's why we love everybody here in St. Louis.
All checking out. All right, so Juan Soto's a free agent, and MLB.com had an update on his sweepstakes. The Giants, the Phillies are expected to meet with him along with the New York teams, are expected to be interested in him along with the New York teams, the Dodgers. He added in another team that might be interested and would like to have a conversation with Juan Soto.
St. Louis, 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 St. Louis.
The Tampa Bay Rays.
What the?
Hold up. Wait a minute.
Hold up.
Something ain't right.
Now, this is not the first time that the Rays have tried to get in on one of these.
I thought they sell these guys off.
They do for the most part, but they also tried to get in on the Freddie Freeman sweepstakes. In fact, there were some reports that they actually offered him more money than the Dodgers did.
Freddie was like, I don't want to go to Tampa.
They offered Aaron Judge $300 million. They are not opposed to these 10-year deals, 13-year deals. I'm actually surprised they didn't get in on Harper or Machado. Maybe they didn't. It just hasn't been reported. But they've been involved in these conversations because they view it clearly as, hey, if you are a future Hall of Fame level player that is a star in every aspect, you're worth that money that we're going to put out there. And we're willing to go to the nth degree to make that possible, even extending beyond our own means, because we've got all of this other stuff that we do to rehash the rest of the roster. We'll build around you. You will be the cornerstone piece of our roster. Alex, the reason why I find this to be so interesting is because that is the opposite of what the Cardinals' philosophy has been for 25 years under the DeWitts. They don't do these kinds of deals. The only one that they've even really considered was potentially doing it with Albert. But other than that, I mean, Albert was close, and then I guess Jason Hayward would have been the second closest thing that they've done to this kind of a long-term deal.
They tried to get Stanton, but it wasn't signing him. You were trading for somebody who...
And even then, I think it was like 7 years.
Yeah, it wasn't what it is compared to this level.
The reason I bring this up is because Chaim Bloom spent a decent amount of time in Tampa. That is where he spent the formative years of his career as an executive. And then his biggest move that defines his career thus far was trading away Mookie Betts because of this kind of a deal. But it sounds like that had more to do with ownership than it was Chaim Bloom didn't want to pay Mookie Betts. Does this make you wonder if maybe the Cardinals, if Chaim Bloom would push the Cardinals to do a deal, multiple deals like this in the future?
No, because of who he's got to get the approval from.
Coming up at 12:30.
I think the Blues are getting Robert Thomas back if we want to talk about that. No, I mean, like, am I more optimistic about it now than what I was with John Mozeliak? Absolutely. Because you're right. Like, why is Tampa doing this? Because Tampa is probably recognizing, like, hey, when there's a guy that is nearly impossible for us to develop the same way that he is at the major league level, you pay that guy. That's called a centerpiece that you build around, and you go get him. And if you're the Cardinals, yeah, you look into those. Bryce Harper is the one we still talk a lot about. So with Chaim Bloom, and we've talked to multiple people from Tampa Bay who have said, like, yeah, a lot of Chaim Bloom's mindset is still kind of flourishing in that system. You would wonder if Chaim Bloom pushes for it, urges for it, and says, hey, this is kind of what we need to set us over the top. But I always go back to who's making that final decision, and it's who's given the money for it. And unfortunately for this Cardinals team, Chaim Bloom's going to have to go get the approval from somebody. And when the DeWitts get asked, hey, are you cool giving out a 13-year, $700 million contract? Veto, and then it's done.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I lie is I think Bloom will be probably more open-minded himself to doing that kind of contract extension. I think I don't remember if it was, I think it was Bloom that we looked back like he used to write for. I remember who it was. And he supported the A-Rod contract extension.
Baseball prospectus.
Thank you. I can remember who it was that he wrote for.
Look at you remembering that.
Yeah. I
sent him the dude.
No, you didn't. Okay. No, you didn't. See,
go ahead,
he's trying to take it. Come on.
Even though he does deserve credit for that one.
No. Don't give it to him.
So he's clearly willing to do those kind of deals. And I don't think his philosophy's probably changed on that, even though he had to deal Mookie Betts. But if he gets in a situation of whether it is going out and signing somebody of a Mookie Betts caliber, or it ends up being Cardinals end up drafting, maybe Walker becomes this guy, right? If he's going to look for that huge contract, I'm sure Chaim Bloom would have loved to have kept Mookie Betts because it's career suicide to trade him, as he learned. It just comes down to ownership. And where it will change is I just don't think you're going to see the DeWitts change their idea on it of, hey, those long-term deals, we don't like it because we know we're not going to get the value in the back end of those contracts, even though that's not what their focus should be on. I am open-minded to doing those kind of deals. I think those are deals the Cardinals should be doing. Those are the kind of creative things that they should be exploring as an organization when they get into the Chaim Bloom era. But I agree with Alex. I think with the same ownership group, I just don't think you're going to see it.
You guys are probably right. But I do think the first test is going to be next year. Now, if the Cardinals end up finding some positive returns on their young players going into the upcoming season, right? Walker ends up being some version of the player that we expected him to be, 270-plus hitter, 20-plus home runs next year. Not like crazy numbers, but just is a good all-around player. Nolan Gorman hits 33 home runs and bats 250 on the season. Mason Wynn is basically the same player next year that he was this year. Maybe Thomas DeJacy hits like 275 and Burleson hits for a little bit more pop and Newbar stays healthy. Like, I'm not saying anything crazy about any of these individuals. This all feels well within the range of outcomes. And they look at the team and they say, Ivan Herrera hits 290, right? It's like, whoa, okay, that's a real like JT Realmuto bat. Will Smith, that's a better version. A Will Smith type of a bat behind the plate.
In his 80 games.
We're now looking at a team that has come together. Let's push a little bit. Next offseason, Vlad Guerrero Jr. and Kyle Tucker are going to be available. Kyle Tucker, T-Bone, are you ready to admit, is a star?
I was wrong. I want him. I actually have a lot of interest in Kyle Tucker.
He's going to be 30 years old, so it's not like he's this young superstar player the way that Juan Soto or previously Machado or Harper were. But this is a guy that for his career is a 275 hitter and averages like 30 home runs and 25 stolen bases a season. He's a real stud. 5-6 win player every single season of his career thus far, like 40% above league average offensively. He's awesome. And he can slot into one of your corner outfield slots moving forward, or it could be like a DH, whatever you want him to be. Probably a corner outfield spot, most likely.
No, those are filled.
Vlad Guerrero Jr., we know what he is at this point of his career. You could then go out there next year and get a superstar, but it requires you to give the allotted number of years, and that will be really the first test potentially that we'll get on this. And I don't know where he'll go. I bet you he does not view it this way with pitchers. I don't think that the pitching side of things is going to change all that much from what they've been in previous years, where it's like, hey, we're not willing to go extend on the years. We'll do the money, but not the years. The position player side is where I'm curious about.
You think 1 year in, though, that would be where you try and push the needle the other direction if you're Chaim Bloom? 1 year in of trying to redevelop everything if one of those guys are available?
Potentially, if you're able to move off of the Arenado deal, and the reason why is because you would have so much money available to you. Like if you can go out there and you've got your book set in a way where Michaelis is gone, Arenado is gone, Matz is gone. You have like no money committed beyond next year. It's just Wilson Contreras and Sonny Gray. That's it. So if I've got clean books and all of these young players, that's what it affords you, is the ability to go out there and say, okay, now let's go get a star to build around. And we can have young players, a couple of big-time player dollar figures on our books. That's what I would probably think about doing. It sounds quick, but this is what I've been saying all along, is it doesn't have to be this 5-year build that the Cardinals are in right now. It can be a reset next year, push the following year, and then really go after it 3 years from now. Like, that's very much in their range.
It's part of the reason why I'd rather than be aggressive this offseason and try and trade for somebody like that. And I know it gives
hard
up
to do,
more
but
assets.
possibly, yeah.
I know it gives up more assets because you're just spending money and giving out a contract versus giving up prospects, but you get into a bidding war. And even if you were to tell me like, hey, ownership is more willing to listen, I don't know how willing ownership is on a bidding war for one of those top free agents, to where if one of these guys is available, and I don't even know if either would be available this offseason, but could you entice them in a trade to get them now and then already have the upper hand on negotiating that bigger contract?
Somebody on the text line said, guys, Kyle Tucker wants $300 million. Bleep that. Rather go after Soto. Sure, Soto's not coming here, though. That's not happening.
He wants to cement his own legacy.
Kyle Tucker, by the way, from Tampa, Florida.
If Tampa gets a meeting with
Kyle Tucker.
wow, he's going to be the first
Ipso
one?
facto, he's going to be the one that takes their money finally.
Are they even going to be in Tampa by then, though?
Man, this is the going rate.
Montreal.
If you're going to get this kind of a superstar, you have to be willing to spend. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Even if it's like if Jordan Walker becomes the superstar that you want him to be, guess what, guys? You're going to have to pay $300 million to keep him.
No, he's going to want to stay here. Hometown discount.
That's just how this thing goes. The rarity is what the Cardinals had with Yachty and Waino and the way that they were able to pay them. And part of that was Yachty's position. They just don't get paid the same way that these other kinds of bats do. And he was known for his defense as much as he was his offense. But some of that also was just like they really, really wanted to be here. The other thing, though, I don't know what Yachty ended up making over the course of his career. He did fine for himself. It was just on shorter-term deals. Mm-hmm. He got that money that you're talking about, and if you adjusted for inflation, I bet you it's more than what we're talking about right now with Kyle Tucker. But the inflation is such that, hey, he's going to get a boatload of money. And guess what? If he hits the way that he has so far in his tenure with Houston, he's going to be worth every penny of it. So would you rather have Juan Soto? Sure. I would also rather have Ted Williams. But beggars can't be choosers, and you're not in the spot right now.
He's not alive, right?
His head is on ice, so I don't know how you really want to call that.
You just want his head?
Yeah.
It's not going to do much.
Man, his head will hit better than what we got from Nolan Gorman last year.
Just put an AI a bat underneath it.
I didn't throw Gorman under the bus like that.
He struck out 38% of the time.
Oh,
You're saying a head wouldn't strike out 38% of the
0%
time?
strikeout rate last year for Ted Williams.
Wow,
Man.
brutal.
So he said, dear God, BK's predicting 5 players to have career years. This Chiefs loss is really making him crazy.
There's a reason
true.
it took off yesterday.
Mizzou's officially done. Their basketball team stinks.
I'm not predicting career years. I think Mason Wynn can be what he was last year, and you're happy.
Superstar?
New part. All I'm asking for is just to stay healthy. Now that's asking a lot.
Yeah.
Jeez.
You better make him a DH
But
then.
can he play 130 games next year? If so, and he puts up the same numbers that he did previously, feel good about that. If Jordan Walker goes out there and takes a step, not to
That would be a
superstardom,
career
but
year.
a step. No, honestly, like what he did 2 years ago. If he just does that for the full year,
Where
have I heard that before? Dylan Carlson?
Sure, no doubt. There's questions about all of these guys. There's reasons to be pessimistic about them, but Nolan Gorman hit, 32 home runs 2 years ago?
Yeah, that
that right?
sounds
What
right.
T-Bone was like 40 easy.
Nolan, 27 home runs in 119 games.
Yeah, that's close
I'm
to
saying if he
30.
hits 34 home runs next year and hits 250, he hit 235 2 years ago. Like I'm not selling you something that is crazy.
I think your
I
Herrera
think you're
projection
selling
was
something
crazy
that's
because
crazy.
Herrera's not going to get that
Coming
many
up
games.
next, I'll tell you why the Blues got a shot at winning the Stanley Cup.
Better to forget it next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex on BK, we got to tell you about our friends over at Circa Sports in Illinois. Alex, over the weekend, I had the opportunity to go over to the Kansas side of things, and all I could think was, man, I wish I could open up my Circa app. Unfortunately, I couldn't, and I didn't get the best odds possible as a result. But right now, if you are in the state of Illinois, you can bet on Circa, which means you're winning the most money possible. And for me, that means betting on a long shot for the Super Bowl this year. Alex, I watched that Sunday night game, and I saw the Chargers. I saw what Justin Herbert looked like, and I thought to myself, I don't think they're going to do it, but I think it's possible. And as a long shot bet, I kind of like putting a little bit of a coin on the Chargers right now. 27-1 odds to win the Super Bowl over on Circa. Put the exact same bet down on FanDuel, 25-1 odds. I'm winning more money when I bet with Circa.
I thought your long shot was the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl after that loss. I'm going to put together a nice parlay for tonight's Blues game. Pavel Buccigross is back, and he's on the wing. And you know how I've bragged about this. The line for Pavel Buccigross to score a goal, plus 275. You do just that individual bet anywhere else, it's sitting at 210. You get the best odds when it comes to Circa Sports Illinois. Whether it's the futures, whether it's the tight money line splits, Circa is the app for all of your sports betting needs. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234. Ooh, hoo, hoo, hoo.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN. Boys, bet it or forget it. This is the final year that we will see a championship game from the Big Ten or the SEC.
Bet it. I don't think the championship games are going to matter anymore. People are already whining about it right now, but I'll bet this one. I think once you get this college football playoffs, it's at 12 teams, and who knows how they just continue to try and expand it moving forward. I think those championship games are going to be dead in the water.
I think I will bet it as well because, I mean, they haven't really made sense. And if you're in the Big Ten or the SEC, they just hurt your cause, especially the SEC, who's going to have potentially, like, both teams with 2 losses could be in the championship game or at minimum 1. And if you lose that third game, now there's a serious conversation about how that could knock you out of the playoff. We saw it even happen with the 4-team playoff. So I will bet this. I do think the Big 12 and the ACC will keep them, though, because I think kind of the formula you're seeing right now is you're going to get 1 from the ACC, 1 from the Big 12. Most years, I think that's probably going to end up being the case, and the championship game will matter to determine who gets in there. And I kind of like that, so I will bet it for the SEC and Big 10, but I think they'll keep it in the ACC and Big 12.
I'm right there with you guys. I think the team that I'm most interested in is Ohio State. That's the one that I'm really honing in on here, because Ohio State is 9-1, right? If they were to win this week, they will have wins over Penn State and Indiana this season, but they do have that loss, close, but a loss against Oregon. What happens if they then lose again against Oregon in the Big Ten championship game? That'll be interesting. The other side of that is if Indiana wins this game, what happens to Indiana potentially in the college football or in the Big Ten championship game? The SEC is every bit as interesting with Texas A&M, because Texas A&M right now is probably a favorite if they were to win out to get into the SEC championship game. They have just 1 conference loss, and it was against South Carolina. If they were on the table, they will be in the SEC championship game. They'll have 2 losses on the year, though, because they also lost to Notre Dame earlier this year. If they were to then lose in the SEC championship game, they would have 3 losses, including that game, South Carolina, and Notre Dame. I'm not sure a 3-loss Texas A&M ends up getting in. So not only would they lose out on the bye, they may lose out entirely on the playoff by being the second best team in what has been the best conference in America this year because they played the additional game after already having wins this year against LSU and potentially Texas at that point. It's a tough go. So, yeah, I think that this is going to be the last season potentially. It might take longer just to get this thing set up, but I think there's a real chance this is the final year that we see the championship game for the SEC and the Big Ten. It has more harmful effects than positive.
Now,
but it is $40 million.
Oh wow! I'd do anything for $40 million.
Anything.
Truly. One thing that I hope, if they are going to keep the championship games because of that nice little
$40 million.
Yeah, they've got 40 million reasons to keep it. If they do keep it, I hope what they do is, if you lose that championship game, the committee doesn't look at it, right? Like, I can see a spot where you can look at, so the SEC, I mean, you mentioned it. A&M loses, they have 3 losses. Well, you just don't look at that loss. You just pretend that game doesn't happen. Well, that's what I'm saying. This is where the committee needs to get to, right? To where you shouldn't look at them and punish them for that extra game because they finished second in the best conference.
But how do
I
not? Because you played it. The game exists.
But I think the whole point of that game isn't so much to eliminate you from the college football playoff for the SEC or the Big Ten. It can only help you get that bye, you know? And honestly, I think there's even a question of, like, how much does that really help? Because, like, a team like, let's see, we said A&M and Texas, say A&M and Texas are in the championship game. So Ole Miss, Alabama essentially get a bye to prepare for the first round.
Yeah, but then those teams, if you're saying that it doesn't count, those teams would then have to play a meaningful game before you do again. And the game would be against, like, Tennessee, Miami, Georgia, Alabama. Like, you're not playing just some scrub, right? You're going up against a big-time level program. So I do think that the bye, we're going to learn this year, kind of like in baseball. I do think the bye will matter. It's just a matter, like, I don't know, man. I think that we will see teams.
Well, my point is not so much wanting the bye, but, like, if you're like A&M and you lose in the championship game, so you don't get the bye leading into the first round. You had to play an extra game. Now you got to go play in the first round again, which is just brutal of the way the schedule works. Yeah, I changed my mind. They got to get rid of it.
See, I think the thing that's funny is it goes back to the discussion that we have with so many different things in sports right now. The people that are involved in the sport, so the coaches, the players, etc., they would want to get rid of this. The people that are in charge of the sport that end up making the money work, right, and are incentivized to have that aspect of it, they will want to keep the championship games in place because of the monetary value that is associated with them. So you have to find a middle point where the money still works and it works out for the players and the coaches. And that typically is not something that happens, and we lean more towards the money. That's why we have these conferences to begin with.
SEC is going to start going, the championship game is now 4th and 5th place in the conference.
Alex, what do you got for us?
All right, guys. Completely forgot where we were at. Bet it or forget it. Pavel Buccigross is going to surpass his career high in goals this season.
Just forget it. Career high? Was
30.
It like 30-something?
30.
No.
You don't think he gets 26 more goals?
No.
Now that they finally took him off the center position?
In the next 60 games? Mm-hmm. No. Forget it.
I think I'm going to forget it as well. I don't see him getting past his season high in goals. I just don't see. I think he's going to be 25 this year.
I think he'll be in that range from the last couple of years. 26, 27 this year, somewhere around there.
You know me. I'm betting it. Robert Thomas and Pavel Buccigross. Batman and Robin are officially back. I think he gets 31. Going to have to get the power play going. That's going to be the biggest thing. But he's just not... He's not shooting as much as he typically does, which hence the center position. You put him back on the wing, now you're going to start taking more shots because you got less responsibility to worry about when you're on the ice.
Guys, bet it or forget it. Alabama would be a team that you would take for a long shot to win the college football championship.
Ooh, that's fun. Let me check my Circa Sports app real quick to find out what their odds are, because I like it.
And I wanted to go with a team that's not... probably never won't be in the top 4. And I mean, I guess they probably could be, but I can't see that happening.
Oh, yeah, no way.
Well, it's not available right now.
They wouldn't be in the top 4. They couldn't get in the top 4, right?
Win the conference championship.
Yeah, they still got a chance for the conference championship.
So you'd have to take down Texas.
Yeah, but I'm going to just assume Texas wins that.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
With their best quarterback, Quinn Ewers. You know?
And then you're talking about...
I think Bama right now is 8-1. I like those odds. I think I like Ole Miss better though, 10-1.
I like that.
If I was to make a longer shot bet, I think Ole Miss would probably be it, 10-1. 18-1 on Penn State's interesting. I don't think they would get it done. That feels like a lofty expectation for them, but I think. By the way, I was trying this out. I was testing out a take for the show.
You were testing out a take?
Yesterday,
who were you testing it out on? Luka?
Yep.
He didn't laugh at
He
it?
hit you with a golf
Or
club.
he did laugh at it?
No, this morning he was waving his plate at Bell, our dog.
He looked at you and he's like, "You're boring."
Penn State is the Baltimore Ravens of college football, right? We all agree with that?
Yeah.
Really good team. You watch them every week when
But
they're
you
not
don't
playing
trust
against
them.
a top 5 team, and you're like, damn, they could definitely win the title. And then you see them against legit contenders, you're like, not quite.
Yeah, not going to fall for
so
you.
close. Ole Miss would be my team, 10-1.
Yeah, I like that one. I don't really trust Alabama, so I would probably go the 10-1 over the 8-1.
Yeah, I'll forget it. You've convinced me on the Ole Miss train. I think both Dart and maybe not so much Dart. I do think Milrose is kind of quarterback that can really have just a 4-game stretch or 3-game stretch where you look at it and go, holy bleep, and then he ends up getting Bama to the promised land.
I think those like latter half SEC teams, Bama, Ole Miss, maybe even Texas A&M, they're 100-1 right now. Those are the teams that I would be focusing on here as a potential long shot bet. One of those teams that went up against this kind of competition and has a real shot to be able to do it. But I'm with you. I do want a quarterback, and that leads me to go away from Texas A&M more so than some of these other teams. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN. Bet It or Forget It from the 314. Alex, to go along with yours, Booch is on the wing the rest of the year.
Bet it.
I agree. Bet it.
Yeah, unless another injury takes place to one of your centermen, I don't see that happening.
Forget it. I don't think they can help themselves. I think they'll put him back at center at some point. I wouldn't be shocked if it's the game against the Sharks on Thursday.
No way.
Oh, I could
Get
totally
the
see it.
bleep out of here.
They didn't generate offense tonight.
Bet it or
Panthers, we're
forget
going to
it.
shuffle it up, baby.
Shen is suddenly on the wing. Bet it or forget it. Betts, Ohtani, Freeman, and Soto will be the Dodgers 1 through 4 in their lineup in 2025. I'm forgetting it. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm also rooting highly against that.
Yeah, as much as I actually would like it, I like chaos, and that's pretty chaotic. I don't think Soto's going to do that. If you're him, I think you want to go somewhere where you could be the star.
I'm going to forget it as well. I wonder how much like the Padres situation, he'll think back on that. You know, like that was supposed to be you can't beat this team, and then it just never worked.
I think
but
he's
I
a
think I think the Dodgers have a better core to kind of absorb him. I think he's either a Met or a Yankee.
I think he's a Met. That's where I would put my money today. Is I think he's going to eventually land with the New York Mets. Him getting to this point is because he wanted the most money possible. I feel like we all know where the most money is going to be possible. It's with
Tampa.
the New York Mets.
Sorry.
Coming up in 15
Jumped in
minutes,
there.
we're going to dive into the junk drawer.
Montreal.
Alex has a story for us today. But next, where do the Blues rank among contenders over the next 3 seasons? ESPN has a ranking list that came out earlier today. Alex has not seen it yet. I think you're going to enjoy his reaction to it. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at Ted Drew's off of Chippewa, a St. Louis tradition since 1929. Whether you got a young family, an older family, you've been there multiple times to build those family traditions at Ted Drew's. 95 years, 4 generations of families have been serving St. Louis since that famous frozen custard. They remain a family-owned and operated business, which I personally love, getting to go out there and see all of the families that have built so many memories at Ted Drew's off of Chippewa. And you can get whatever you want, whatever flavor you want. My daughter is really obsessed with chocolate chips and marshmallows. Probably shouldn't be giving it to her, but boy, does she love that vanilla custard. You can buy it in concretes, malt shakes, sundaes. You can also get it in the quart size and bring it home, freeze it, and have it for all the holiday desserts. Speaking of those holidays, make sure you walk across the parking lot. Check out the gift shop for Ted Drew's, where you can buy Ted Drew's apparel. You can buy Ted Drew's gift cards, Ted Drew's souvenirs, anything that you need for somebody that you never know what to get. Everybody loves some Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. So get on out there this weekend. Get on out there today and start building those traditions. Ted Drew's famous frozen custard off of Chippewa. It really is good, guys and gals.
Tanner Hendricks and USA Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight as they take host to the Minnesota Wild. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 7. The sports update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So, Alex, earlier today, ESPN.com did a ranking of which NHL teams have the best future. And when they did this, they did so for the next 3 seasons, looking at what the next 3 seasons are going to be for each individual team.
Get the dump button ready.
So, it wasn't kind, as you can imagine, to your St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, no-ish.
As you would expect, they were not in the top 10.
You could have told me ESPN did an article and the Blues were in it, and I would have said, cool, they're not top 10. So tell me something I don't know.
The top 5, for those that are curious who the best teams are, according to this ranking, and it breaks it down by roster, prospects, cap/contract situation, and then owner, GM, coach, those 3 individuals. That was a part of it as well. Those 4 pieces of criteria. I'll break it down, put it into an algorithm. And
can I guess some of these?
Sure.
Carolina.
They're number 1.
Minnesota.
I'd have to go through it. They're number 4.
Florida.
They're number 5. So you've got 3 of the top 5.
Trying to think of other teams.
You're missing 2 and 3.
Trying to think of other teams.
One of those 2 is in the Central Division.
Better not be Nashville. Oh, Minnesota.
You already said.
All right, I said Minnesota. It's not Colorado. Oh, Dallas.
There you go. Dallas is number 3. And at number 2, it's the New York Rangers. So the top 5, Carolina, the Rangers. Rangers scored well for their current roster, their cap situation, and their owner/GM/coach.
They scored well with their cap situation when their goalie's demanding $13 million?
That is correct, because it's not currently signed.
Oh, okay, good. So we're not projecting into the future, but don't look at the future. Look at the current situation.
Dallas is 3, Minnesota 4, and Florida is number 5.
I agree with 3 of those top 5.
So the part the St. Louis fans care about, where are the Blues?
It's probably the bottom 5, BK.
Roughly. 26th overall is where they rank on this.
Stupid.
They're 23rd in NHL roster, 12th in prospects capital, 30th in the league in cap situation, and 24th when it comes to their owner/GM/coach. Here is what they had to say on ESPN.com. The Blues are an interesting case study. Their current lineup includes terrific talent such as Jordan Kyrou, Robert Thomas, Pavel Buchnevich, and Colton Parayko. GM Doug Armstrong has made an effort to improve St. Louis even further by acquiring Holloway and Broberg on offer sheets, yet the Blues are still a below-average team struggling to score with an abysmal special teams. Based on Armstrong's aggressive move with the Oilers, it doesn't seem as though St. Louis is interested in a retooling process, perhaps based on the lack of available cap space to make significant additions. That could have the Blues facing a 3rd season outside of the playoff picture. Their farm system does have a few interesting names worth monitoring. A couple of them could be up next, including Jimmy Snuggerud, but the team is faced with a tight cap constraint, and they're typically either in the midst of or about to exit a championship window. The Blues are not in either of those situations. They've missed the playoffs 2 straight campaigns, missing a 3rd consecutive season, would tie for their longest drought in franchise history.
I pulled it up while you were reading that because now I can look at it now that you've told me. Can I read you the line that I'm out on this article?
Sure.
Their farm system does have a few names worth mentioning. Zach Bolduc. Okay. Zach Dean. Really? Tanner Dickinson. And Jimmy Snuggerud. This article is referencing a dude who was drafted in the 4th round 4 years ago, and we're acting like he's a memorable name. Didn't even mention Dvorsky.
It's a fair point, fair critique.
Look at some of these teams that are around. First of all, is anybody still in on the Yzer plan?
No.
T-Bone, you hate the Yzer plan, correct?
Yeah, because it hasn't worked for, I don't know, the whole time he's been in Detroit.
You want to know where the Detroit Red Wings are on this list?
Man, I'm scrolling up. They're pretty high.
Yeah.
Yeah, where are they?
They're at 7th freaking place.
That's insane.
Now, they have a great prospect area, but you're telling me their GM and coach and ownership aside, you're telling me their GM and coach is 16th, where yours is ranked 24th, where any national analyst we talk to talks about how Doug Armstrong is one of the best GMs in the National Hockey League.
I do think some of this feels right.
I think the cap situation feels absolutely right, but if you're looking at it right now, totally. What's it look like next year?
I mean, that is something that is worth noting.
But here's why I ask that. No trade clauses become modified no trade clauses. With Letty, with Justin Falk, with Brandon Saad, if you're able to move on from contracts, which I would fully anticipate this team doing, if the salary cap is going to go up to $95 million next year, and you've got a lot of younger players that need ice time, I fully anticipate some of those cap casualties that they're whining about are not a part of the problem for this Blues team. And all the other guys are locked up.
And to be fair, like, Justin Falk's mostly been fine this year.
Totally.
I think this year he's been worth $6.5 million.
I'd agree.
And if you have him next to Broberg and that's your second pair defensively and they're making $11 million combined over the next couple of years, that's fine. I'm totally cool with that. Now, the Letty thing, not great, especially considering he's hurt right now, and I'm not sure there's going to be another team that's willing to take on the $4 million. But when he's played before getting hurt, he looked like a $4 million defenseman for the most part, at least $3 million. So I think that the contracts maybe look less bad. The one that's really bad right now is Braden Shin. Like, there's just no getting around it. That contract right now looks like a problem for the Blues. He's got the no trade clause. He's $6.5 million, but at least it's not 10.
And $95 million, if that's what the cap's expected to be next year, you're talking about, what is that, 4% considered to your cap hit? Like, that is not a problem for a third-line center.
It's not great. It's not a good situation to be in, but the Blues did have, let's not forget this, Alexander Steen making like $5 million on a much smaller cap when they won the Cup in 2019.
I think his was an 8% cap hit at the time.
Yeah, you can get around that. So the Blues cap situation, while not great, I don't know if it's as dire as what it suggests here. 12th in the prospect pool feels about right to me. It seems to me, Alex, like we maybe have overestimated their prospect pool a bit because of the lack of like star power coming through.
Yeah, and see, I just feel like people are underestimating it because, like, yes, Dalibor Dvorsky is not considered a star. It's not Macklin Celebrini or Connor Bedard in the National Hockey League.
Which is a big deal.
But they're acting as if this is a middle six forward. And I don't know if he might be, but he
probably is.
But he also could be somebody who plays a second line center and contributes 60 to 70 points.
But isn't that a middle six forward?
Well, yeah, but they're acting as if this guy might at best be a second line forward, but more than likely is a third line center. And that's not where you're at.
I don't know. I mean, they don't even mention him in this piece, so I don't know.
Tanner
if that's
Dickinson is mentioned in this piece.
Future stuff.
Sorry, Tanner D. Sorry,
Current
Tanner D.
roster is middling. I think where I diverge from what their opinion is on this is the owner GM coach situation.
Agreed.
I would weigh the coach as like almost nothing as part of that conversation because that can be, as we've seen, changed every 2 years. That's how it works in the NHL. I think the Blues have a really good ownership group right now. They were willing to spend this year when they did not need to, and in fact, most teams would not have, and they decided to do it anyways. You know you've got a good GM. Now the question is, this is for the next 3 years. I have no idea if Alex Steen's going to be good at this or not. We're all projecting and basically we're just hoping that he will be because he's learning from Army, and he was a good player here. But we have seen a lot of times where this goes south quickly with a person that has no previous experience with it. So I have no idea if he's going to be good or not. But for the next couple of years, at a minimum, you've got Doug Armstrong around, and I would have them ranked higher than 24th in that area. I would have them probably at a minimum top 12.
Yeah, and I would have the roster a little bit higher up than 23. Like Detroit's roster right now is sitting at 21. You just can't.
I don't know, man. That feels.
You can't tell me that Detroit's got a better roster right now. Now somebody's gonna be like, "Oh, look at the record. Alex is better." Cool. They're relying on Patrick Kane and Vladimir Tarasenko right now for that team.
How much higher are you talking though?
I mean, I would put them closer to like 20 or 19, which I know isn't much.
It's like 3 spots.
Fine, but we're talking about this article where they're ranking them the 5th or 6th worst team in the National Hockey League for 3 years from now.
My spot, like where I really disagree with them, is the owner GM coach spot. I think they're like top 10 to 12. They ranked 24th in that area on this list.
I just think their roster's got pieces that every team needs to win with. You've got a number 1 center. You're finally going to put your top winger back in the lineup with Pavel Buchnevich. When healthy, you've already seen one that's already there, another one potential top pair defenseman, and we've talked about the goaltending.
So here's a question for you. Like Ottawa ranks 19th on their list of rosters. Do you think that you have a better roster today than Ottawa?
Yeah. Now they have Brady Tkachuk, and I know everybody's going to point at that, but I would push back and say, well, the Blues have Robert Thomas. Who's their defenseman that you'd rather have over Colton Parayko or Philip Broberg? Thomas Chabot? I'm sorry, I would have Colton Parayko over Thomas Chabot. Goaltending-wise, you want Linus Ullmark? I've never seen Linus Ullmark do anything in the postseason. Regular season's great.
Sure.
Now, they might have more depth because they've got a Stützle who's also a superstar. They've got a Shane Pinto who can be a superstar. They've got a couple of guys, but I would also push back and say, well, you've got Jordan Kyrou. A lot of people believe he's a star. Pavel Buchnevich has shown it in the past. And the undeveloped side of this thing is why I'm just so harsh when they look at the 3-year projection, because we're talking about two guys that we don't even know. They could be busts in Dvorsky and Snuggerud.
But that's not part of the roster conversation. That's a part of the prospects conversation.
Yeah, that's a prospect conversation, but their prospect was ranked 12th, and I'm probably about right, but they've got pieces now that presents them to be more competitive. And I think the reason this article looks so down on it is because you've dealt with injuries for so long.
They've got Jake Sanderson, right?
I think that's right.
He's
a Jake
super
Neighbors.
young. No, he's a defenseman. He's 22 years old, 5th overall pick previously. He's playing 25 minutes a night basically right now. Like that's
a Colton, or that's a Philip Broberg for you.
Yeah,
but again, their number one defenseman,
potentially better.
Their number one defenseman is Thomas Chabot because they traded away Jacob Chychrun. And I know this doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, but this is a 28-year-old defenseman who.
The reason why I asked the question is not so much like to compare Ottawa versus St. Louis so much as to say like somewhere in that range, whether you think they're 19th or 23rd in terms of their current NHL roster, that feels like the right range to me. Mm-hmm. And then it just becomes a question of like, how do you feel about the other stuff?
Yeah, and what does your ownership do? And that's where you make a very good point. Your ownership is willing to spend. They're doing it right now. Your general manager, despite how you feel about Steen being an unknown, he's working with Doug Armstrong, who is viewed as the number one. And Doug Armstrong is still around the team.
Where would you put them? Because I would have them around
top
20th.
10.
Top 10?
The ownership, GM, and coach?
No, I'm sorry. For the next 3 years, I was like, oh my God.
No. I'm not that big of a Blues honk. No,
wow,
I thought
you are going to be good.
I thought you were talking owner, GM, coach.
Next 3 years, because if we're going to criticize this list, we should also be willing to put where we think the Blues rank. Where do you think they should be? Because I would say like 18 to 20 feels about right to me.
Yeah, I would say probably right around there.
I would agree with that.
And once again, I get paid by the Blues, apparently. I'm the Blues honk. This is a middling team. I'm not disagreeing with anybody, but guess what? That's what the retool is supposed to be, a middling team.
He's Alex Estevon on BK. Coming up next, the Junctuary on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Let's dive into the junk drawer. Alex, what do you got for us?
All right, so I got to do this story quick because I think we have some high school kids coming around doing a tour. So I listened to a podcast.
First off, college, but yeah.
Is it college? Even better.
Hey, that's the Lewis and Clark alumni coming through. Don't disrespect the Trailblazers.
Sorry, I thought it was the only high school that was coming through.
Yeah.
Are they really Trailblazers, or are you just labeling them Trailblazers?
No, that's the name.
Is it? Okay.
As an aside,
are a thing, but
the middle school down the street from us was ranked a top 10 school in the state recently.
nice.
I have one of those by me, too.
I didn't know that was a thing, that we were ranking middle schools in the state of Missouri.
Education,
now.
man.
I would love to hear a well-explained and well-reasoned argument as to why that is.
He doesn't want to get political, but there it is. Unbelievable.
Take it away, my friend.
Let's change the topic before BK gets us all fired. So there's a podcast I like to listen to. It's kind of away from sports. It's Dak. God, what's his name? Dak Shepard. Have you ever? Movie star. It's called the Armchair Expert Podcast, where he just interviews a bunch of Hollywood stars. So they're interviewing the star of the Wicked movie. And if you guys don't know, she's got these like super long fingernails. And he asks the hard-hitting questions that I think are very important. He asks her how she wipes with those long fingernails. This is a very important question.
Oh, apparently this has not been getting good
Traction?
It's not been well received.
Probably,
People are not thrilled by the, quote, inappropriate, end quote.
I don't think it's inappropriate at all. Because, look, that's not the only one. We all see the individuals that have those really long fingernails.
That's what comes to mind for you?
How? Aren't you concerned? This is somebody who has hemorrhoid issues. Wouldn't you be concerned?
No. Wouldn't even come to mind for me, honestly. Not something that I would consider. Nope.
All right. Well, I thought it was a very important question to ask. Yeah, that was my junk drawer. So apparently you guys didn't like it.
Well, you know.
I'm not really sure what to say to it, honestly.
I just, sometimes you just sit there and wonder, certain scenarios, how you make little things work.
Now, sure, that I've thought about. Not in this specific circumstance.
Again, some things go through my mind, some things go through your mind, you know?
What's Tim's thing? Some people like some things, some people like others.
Look, it's just one of those scenarios that I'd be worried about harm to myself.
Sure, yeah, we got it. Did he get an answer? You listened to the podcast. I have not. Was there?
No, which makes sense that, reaction hasn't been that well.
Yeah,
it was kind of the awkward laugh, and then you just shift topics pretty
Apparently
quick.
she wasn't thrilled by the question.
Again, I don't think it's that bad of a question. You've got the fingernails. I'm curious. That's the whole point of the podcast.
I feel like that's one of those questions that you asked if you were super close with somebody. I'm not sure that's the
no, I don't
question you
think
ask
so.
if you're meeting somebody for the first time.
I mean, this is coming from the guy who had a junk drawer story a couple weeks ago where I looked at some guy who made a random comment at the urinal
Yeah.
at Centene.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Some
This
things
is
pop into your head, and you want answers.
and you wanted the answers.
I did.
And Alex, this is what you're here for.
So if somebody's listening that has those long fingernails, I'd like an answer.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. The text line is placed to get those answers in. 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line. You can check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Coming up next, how do Thomas to JC and Alec Burleson play into the Cardinals' 2025 plans? Hopefully not with long fingernails. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK for my friends at Victory Men's Health. Check them out today. They've got 4 great locations across the St. Louis area, and they are online at victorymenshealth.com. When I first heard about Victory, I was like, I don't know that I need to go over there. I feel pretty good. And then I found out, okay, well, there's a lot of people that feel like they're doing pretty well, but you don't realize you've lost energy. You've lost the same results that you once got out of your workouts. So it is time to unlock your inner champion again. And the place to do so is Victory Men's Health. Check them out online, victorymenshealth.com. If you go over there, you can can book your appointment. It is a super easy process. You just put in your name, email, phone number. Tell them a little bit about yourself, what it is that you're looking to unlock in your inner champion. Tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you. Maybe that is a weight loss goal that you're trying to meet. Low testosterone, some of the symptoms that you've been feeling. Maybe that's something you want to get checked out. Check those testosterone levels. Erectile dysfunction issues, they can help you out with that at victorymenshealth.com as well. It's a super great place. They have 4 locations across the area, and at victorymenshealth.com, it's victorymenshealth.com. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, Sharon and Clayton dropping in. Alex, I've had long fingernails for decades, never had any issues with personal hygiene. If you're used to long nails, you learn how to do things with them. Hope that helps.
It does, Sharon. And
shout out to Sharon and Clayton.
Yeah, appreciate the honesty. I'm glad you weren't offended by it. I was curious.
Kasperi Kapanen, by the way, heading to Edmonton. He's been claimed off of waivers. No real easy transition there.
No, yeah, there's no transition with that. Well, enjoy watching him score 10 goals in the next 15 games, and everyone's like, the Blues lost them.
I'm really happy about this.
What? He's going to go off in Edmonton, and now people are going to talk to us about it. Like, can you believe Army let him go?
I'm really happy about this. It just pulls one more player out of that logjam that the Blues have had that included Zach Bolduc. I just want Bolduc to go out there and play non-fourth line minutes, man. That's all I want.
Well,
just play in the top 9 every night, basically. If you get an off night here or there, like if there's a back-to-back and you want to do some maintenance with him, that's fine. They did that over the weekend, right? But in general, play him basically every night. Give him like 13 or 14 minutes. That's all I'm asking for. And Kapanen was a roadblock to that taking place. So I'm glad... Kapanen, by the way, getting a good opportunity going to Edmonton. I'm glad that he is no longer here, not because I hate the guy or anything, but because he was a progress stopper in a season where you really needed to go do this.
Yeah, it saves him $1 million from putting that in the minor leagues if he would have cleared waivers. So that's at least on the good side of things because this team obviously was spending money. But you're right. Like, I don't anticipate Bolduc staying in the lineup until he just takes this spot because when Joseph comes back, if I'm assuming it's going to be the next game, he'll jump into that lineup and he'll play where probably Bolduc or Texier is. Like Joseph and Sundqvist will go back into the lineup. And right now it's going to be who does not take this shot? Because what they were doing prior to Thomas coming back was it was a revolving door of Kapanen in a game, Bolduc a game, Texier a game. And I know that's frustrating, but that's the coach essentially telling all of those players, hey, one of you guys needs to prove that you want to stay in the lineup. And I don't think any of them have done that.
So if I told you before the season, Kapanen a second and a third round pick for Holloway and Broberg, who says no? Feel like the Blues came out ahead?
Yeah, are you kidding me? What a steal.
That's effectively what the trade is.
But yet ESPN's going to rank the Blues ownership and general managers 24th in the NHL. But the Iser plan is higher up. Come on, guys.
All right, Alex, last thing on this. We're going to talk to John Buccigross on the other side, ESPN's NHL analyst. He's going to join us in about 5 minutes, so stay tuned for that. Blues have made some changes to their power play unit. Looks like Robert Thomas is going to be on the point. If I'm not mistaken, I think they did that a little bit, like the last game or two prior to him going down with injury as well. How do you feel about this, using Thomas as the point player?
I think it's smart.
On the power play.
They were using Falk on the point at the start of the season because obviously the power play quarterback, and I think they realized they didn't have a one-time shot from either side. You've got Buccigross, who does have a one-time shot. Sometimes it's not accurate, but he's got one. Now you've moved Falk to the other side because the power play is not threatening if you don't have something that goaltenders have to be worried about both sides of the goalpost. Now you've got Kyrou in the bumper spot that I think is a really good place for him. You've got Falk and Buch on the side. And Robert Thomas, it doesn't have to be a defenseman up at the blue line. It's got to be one of your best playmakers. A lot of the times it is an offensive defenseman. That's how Torrey Krug thrived in Boston for the longest time and when he got to St. Louis. I don't expect Thomas to stay there. Frankly, I would imagine that power play is just going to kind of be rotating around when they're on the ice. But I like the way you start that. My guess is Thomas takes the face-off, and then he just fades back onto the blue line as Justin Falk shifts up, and you've got the 2 one-time shots.
Blues back in action tonight. Robert Thomas back in the lineup. He is going to be centering the wings of Jordan Kyrou and Pavel Buchnevich. Braden Shin is your second-line center with Neighbors and Saad. And then you've got Bolduc, Holloway, and Texier as your third line. The WTF line is your fourth line going into this evening. Alex, this is kind of what we thought that the lineup would look like coming into the season.
Yeah, this is the best way.
Finally getting to see it. And it's going to be fun to be able to watch. I don't know how good this team's going to be still, but it is at least starting to be constructed the way that we all anticipated coming into the season. You'll be able to hear pregame coverage with Alex starting tonight at 6 o'clock. Puck drop for Blues versus the Wild tonight at 7. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get to our football pick'em reveal. But next, John Buccigross is the ESPN NHL analyst. We love talking to him here on BK and Ferrario. He's going to be a part of the coverage tonight for Blues versus Wild on this nationally televised game. He joins us next here on BK and Ferrario.
Back here on BK and Ferrario, along with Brandon Kiley, Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Alex Ferrario. Blues back in action on home ice tonight as they get set to take on the Minnesota Wild. And on the broadcast on the ESPN side, the play-by-play man, John Buccigross, who is joining us now on our celebrity line. John, always great to talk with you, my man. And I saw on Twitter at the rink, you took a picture with the famous Joe Vitale earlier today. That's when you know you're ready for some Blues hockey.
Absolutely. Trying to pull off the Ryan Gosling look and failing miserably. But, hey, you got to give a guy props for giving it a shot.
You were giving the Ryan Gosling look, or he was? I'm not sure here.
He was trying to pull it off with those glasses. They reminded me more of Joseph P. Kennedy. That's JFK's dad back in the 1920s, the Prohibition look.
See, now it's him getting political, Alex, not me. It's not. I didn't do it, guys.
Not political. He was,
Bucci, here's the thing with Joey V, man. He just goes after style. He wore a green jacket a couple of weeks ago, and I think every single person in the arena was like, "Oh, Joe, nice jacket. You headed for the PGA Tour?" He didn't like that.
Yeah, well, he's only got a few more months left in his 30s, so his life's about to change here. He's pretty much at the end.
Yeah,
so this is it for Joe.
That makes a lot of sense.
Midlife crisis with the glasses.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, Bucci, it's always great to catch up with you, man. And the main reason, of course, you're on the call tonight for Blues and Wild. And I know you've seen plenty of Blues so far this season on the ESPN broadcast side. What has been your biggest takeaway from this Blues team early on in the season?
Well, obviously lots of injuries, a little disjointed. When the season started, I don't think many people picked them to make the playoffs, probably around that bubble area, see how it goes. But, the first few games, like, oh, wow, maybe they got something here. Then the injuries start to happen. And then certainly, again, getting Broberg and Holloway kind of gave an off-season kind of jolt to the team. That was kind of cool to do something like that in August before the season starts, September. And so you get these two young players, and maybe they'll pop a little bit. But certainly Broberg did. Looks like he's going to be a real player. Looks like it's going to be a real good deal. We'll see about Holloway, but it's not that much expensive of a deal. We'll see how it goes with him. He's a fourth-line center on tonight's game as Thomas makes his return. So, yeah, it's just trying to, figure things out in terms of, the injuries, and we're trying to kind of reload on the fly here with some guys in their mid-20s. So, you don't make the playoffs this year, which maybe they get some lottery luck and then they get another stud, and, then maybe they continue to kind of move forward. So it's kind of an interesting time for Blues fans as they try to figure this out, going forward.
When you look, Bucci, at a guy like Jordan Kyrou, and he's a lightning rod for discussion here in St. Louis, what is your national view of Jordan Kyrou?
Well, again, like you said, in terms of where are the Blues going to be over the next decade, the next 5 years, or can they become like a high-level team again? Well, that depends on how high-level Thomas and Kyrou go. Can Kyrou end up being kind of like Mitch Marner? Can he end up being like this 90-point guy and, start to bring it every night consistently so he can really start to produce, multi-point games and put the puck in the net a little bit more? Because in the end, goal scoring is, the most important thing. It's the hardest thing, and you need guys that can do that. So really, I think the national opinion of him is almost like they don't really have one. And you want to force people to have an opinion of you. I know locally they want a little more out of him. They've been asking for more out of him for a couple of years. They've been frustrated with him. I know Craig Berube was. And so at some point you just got to start bringing it every night and then force them to have an opinion of you that's strong. But I really do think he should look at Mitch Marner and say, can I get to that level as a producer, playmaking and finishing as a scorer?
Do you view that as realistic?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, again, these guys they can get better. They can get stronger. They can work on their games. They can get smarter. You can learn how to be mentally tougher and even physically tougher once you realize, okay, that doesn't hurt so much. I don't have to fight. I can be a little more confrontational. I can energize my teammates. I can be a leader for young guys who's starting to come up now. And you got to kind of do that at some point. Like, here's how I live my life. Here's how I approach my craft. Here's how I approach my sport. And then people will follow you. And then obviously then you have to have your own, production consistency. And that just takes an incredible amount of initiative and just want to. And at some point, that's all it comes down to, really.
How much, and last follow-up question that I've got on this, but how much of Marner's production in your mind is tied to the fact that he plays so often with a guy like Austin Matthews? Like, if I flipped Kyrou and Marner, would we be having the same conversation in reverse right now?
I don't think so. I think Marner has proven to be a guy with a little more zip to his game. certainly anybody benefits from a goal scorer. Nicholas Backstrom did with Alexander Ovechkin, and now you see Dylan Strome is. When you pass a puck to a guy who can score like that, you're going to get assists that you normally would not get. You'll get twice as many assists as you would get for another guy. So as a result, people like Alex Ovechkin get their line mates bigger houses and more expensive cars. That's what they do. They literally make them money that they would not have made playing with other ordinary NHL players, you know? And so as a result, they get these huge houses and these big cars because they get to play with someone like that. So certainly if Kyrou played with Austin Matthews, he would have more assists for sure. But would he earn that ice time? Would he be productive himself? And of course, Marner has those own issues in Toronto because come playoff time, he wilts, and that's the problem. Because that's where you don't earn any money in the playoffs, but that's where you really certainly earn your career, and that's where you earn your stay with a team for a long period of time when you've proven that you're a playoff performer.
We're talking with John Buccigross here on BK and Ferrario on the Callier and Thompson phone line. Bucci's on the call for Blues and Wild tonight on the ESPN side. So, John, the one conversation about the Blues this season that I think a lot of national people have been having is the Blues being stuck in the middle. Do they feel like a team to you that's stuck in the middle?
Not quite because of their youth, because of Kyrou and Thomas. Again, they have time and they have a chance to make another leap, whatever their level of player is. If they're a 6.8 out of 10 being the best players in the league, McDavid and Draisaitl and Pastrnak and Matthews, if they're a 6.8 player, can they become a 7.7 player? Okay, then you have two of those. When the Boston Bruins won the Stanley Cup back in 2011, it was Bergeron and a young Marchand, and they had a Chara. Like they didn't have Connor McDavid super duper stars, and of course the Blues themselves only know that when they won their last cup. They just have the right mix of guys in their prime, young guys who can carry the water, which you need to do. Because it's a long season. You need those young, energetic guys who can kind of pick up the slack when these older guys need a little bit of a blow. But I don't think they're far from a team like that. They got to get lucky on the back end. How are they going to get another Alex Pietrangelo? Will a defenseman, will Broberg develop like that and become that stud? Okay, well now you have that stud. Will Thomas and Kyrou, like I said, kind of become like a 7.8, 8.2 star. Okay, now the guys underneath them, can we replace them and get another of these 5.5, 6-star guys? And that's what Doug Armstrong's trying to do. That's why he's trying to accumulate all these guys in their mid-20s. If a couple can pop, get lucky in a couple more drafts, yet the last couple drafts, you don't know when you draft these 18, 19-year-olds, maybe they'll pop then. It happens, You get a guy 13th overall, 18th overall, who ends up being a Hall of Famer like the Ducks did with Perry and Getzlaf in the 20s, That can happen. So I wouldn't call themselves a middle team like that, like the Penguins are a middle team going towards death. The Blues aren't like that. I still think there's a decent amount of hope.
Bucci, a team that is going in the other direction right now, you mentioned them, is Boston. And there's a report coming out from WEEI just a couple of minutes ago that Jim Montgomery is expected to be fired as the Bruins head coach. You are closer to that situation, certainly, than we are here in St. Louis. What happened with Monty and the Bruins?
Yeah, it's a good question because certainly, maybe it's as simple as his contract was up. He was not signed after this year. So normally what you do, you either give the coach an extension or you get a new coach and you make a change. Very rarely a coach goes into the season in the final year of his deal. Like, you do it one way or the other. And so I tweeted this out on Saturday. I thought the Sunday would have been a time to fire him or either give an extension. Either give an extension now, because all you do is giving the players an excuse. We don't have to listen to him. We don't know if he's going to be here. And plus, their schedule eases up these next 2 weeks, and they have multiple days off, so a new coach can implement his practice and system. He'll have time to do that. So I thought the weekend was a perfect time. Now, again, you don't know what's going on. Maybe they're negotiating for the next coach right now, and that does take a couple days. That's why it can get awkward. The next coach, they might need to negotiate, whoever that is, Todd McClellan or the assistant, or maybe they try to get Joe Quenneville back.
They said Joe Sacco is expected to take over.
That's what I figured, because I brought that up to a friend of mine. He's like, well, that's the same voice that's been there for 8 years. But, again, Sacco's certainly head coaching material. He's there for a mid-season. If you're looking to make it as seamless as possible, you're not changing all the systems to try to implement a new guy. That makes sense to me. I always thought Sacco would be the guy if they fired him. And so Obviously it's been bad. And then last night certainly was, I think, the final one for Montgomery, the former Blues assistant, of course.
Yeah, Bucci, that's where I was going to go next. What do you think the interest is going to be league-wide if Monty is available, like these reports are saying? Because I know a lot of people in St. Louis are like, oh, you got to go get Jim Montgomery.
It's possible. I mean, I think he's very well thought of as a head coach. He's got great command. His two seasons in Boston were pretty successful, record-breaking season year one when they broke the all-time record. Obviously, the first-round exit. They're up 3-1. Brad Marchand has a breakaway in Game 5 to win the series with a minute to go. And they win. And then they win in 5, and it's a rout. Instead, that doesn't happen. They come back, and then last year, again, another first-round exit to a team that's obviously been proven to be an elite team. They've been to 3 straight finals. So you can't, you don't kill them for that. But, no, I think he'll get a job quickly, whether or not it could be in St. Louis this year, because if you like the guy, you got to go get him now. You don't want to wait and have someone else get him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he got fired today and hired next week. Like, that literally could happen.
The NHL, man.
Bucci, can you explain this to me like I'm 5? The NHL, and this is the case to a degree, I suppose, in the NBA as well, but the way that they recycle these coaches seemingly on a year-in, year-out basis. Like, I mean, you had Edmonton last year. The Blues did this. Like, teams that end up going to the Cup have fired their coach 20 games into a season. Why is it viewed as such a replaceable position in this league in your mind?
I think because it is the most emotional sport there is. Of all the ones I played as a kid, nothing required more emotion. Nothing turned me into a competitive a-hole like hockey. I mean, it would make me do things I wouldn't do playing. I mean, it's a blood-boiling blood sport. It really is. And so emotion matters. And if you're not emotionally invested, and if a general manager notices his team is not emotionally invested, you have no chance, because a team that is emotionally invested will kick your butt every day of the week. And so I'm sure Don Sweeney, although he might be distracted by Four Nations and all that stuff, maybe it's why it took this long. Once he realized his team is checked out, and clearly Marchand and Pastrnak have checked out, then there's no way it can continue, because you have no chance to win, which proved last night, to lose to a Columbus team 5-1 at home. Like, he knows they've checked out, so you have to make a change. So that's why it happens, I think, more so in hockey, because once the emotional button is turned off, you got to change it, and the best way to do that is with a new coach and new voice. And it's the least expensive way to do it. It's the easiest way to do it, and that looks like what will be done in Boston. And who knows, other teams will soon follow. It's usually a domino effect.
Bucci, final one, and we really appreciate the time as you're getting set for the broadcast tonight. Since you're the college expert when it comes to hockey, we got to ask about Jimmy Snuggerud. So many Blues fans are curious how his game is going to translate to the NHL level, and I'm sure you've seen plenty of him at Minnesota.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited to be here, because obviously the Frozen Four will be here in St. Louis in April. So I'll be back here in April for the Frozen Four with Colby Cohen. So I'm looking forward to that. And, again, he's one of those wingers, and we talked about, are the Blues stuck in the middle? Well, again, we don't know how good Jimmy Snuggerud can be. Will he be a 30-goal scorer in the National League? Will he be a 18-goal scorer, like another Alex Texier that, is playing tonight and they thought had promise when he was a young guy, Snuggerud's age? As it turned out, looks like he's just going to be a guy. And so that's what we don't know, and that's what the player has to prove, and you don't prove till you get here. I was talking to Matthew Kessel today, the young defenseman, and, of course, he won a national championship at UMass, so I had him back in the day and just talking, how difficult this league is and trying to make that next step, and that's what we'll have to find out. But Snuggerud's a big winger. You hope that he can play with Thomas or Kyrou, and they can help set him up, and they can make him, like I talked about, when Jordan Kyrou makes that next step, hey, your job's to turn him into a 30-goal scorer, because that makes us better. That makes you better. That makes him more money. That makes us win, and then everybody wins. And so that's I certainly have high hopes for Snuggerud. He was great in the World Junior. Big game, big spotlight situation. You like to see that. But you don't know until they do it.
Bucci, it's always great to catch up with you, man. We really appreciate you taking some time out of the busy schedule. Have a great call tonight on the ESPN side, and hopefully we'll catch up with you again once we get closer to that Frozen Four here in St. Louis.
I got to be your best guest today. I mean, I was on point, A-game stuff, right?
Yeah, that's why we call it a celebrity line.
Anyone else tops me?
No.
It'll either be you or Joey Vitale this week.
Joe's on Thursday,
well,
Bucci.
All right. Boom. Well, you tell him Bucci is coming for him, and then you better bring his A game.
Bucci, you're the best, man.
Peace out. Booyah.
Take it easy. It's John Buccigross joining us here on 101 ESPN. You'll see him on the call tonight.
Yep.
Blues versus the Wild. We recommend, though, instead you listen to it right here on 101 ESPN. He does a great job.
Yeah, we love you, Bucci, but
appreciate his time here today. But just listen to this interview on repeat, and then listen to Alex Ferrario, Chris Kerber, and Joey Vitale, of course, on 101 ESPN.
Nailed it.
Starting at 6 o'clock, they'll take you all the way through postgame. That is the way to do it. All right, before we get to our football pick and reveal, which is coming up on the other side, we got to talk about this.
Yeah, we have to.
Do you think they'd do it? And what I'm talking about is Monty. It sounds like this report is legit. I texted my buddy in Boston, Tom Carroll. Those of you that listen to the station are familiar with him. He now works for a station up in Boston. He said, hey, this guy is really good. He knows his stuff. He's got the inside scoop on Boston, the Bruins specifically, and it sounds like this is happening. We knew last week, Alex, that this was likely to happen at some point. When you lose to Columbus, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Yesterday, it looks like Marchand got into it with Monty on the bench as well. So
both have just quit playing for him, and I mean, everybody is very familiar with how that goes in St. Louis. But when your players quit on you,
it's over.
You got to move on.
If you were in Army shoes, I mean, the call is not so much like, are you interested in Monty? Everybody's going to be interested in Monty. He's a good coach. If you're in Army shoes, are you willing to go to ownership and say, hey, I know we just hired this guy, Drew Bannister, and I told you he was the best man for the job. And that was true at the time. Because at the time, Jim Montgomery was not available. He now is, and I view him as the best man for this job today. Are you willing to do that and put your butt on the line? Army's got a lot of cachet. Is that something you're willing to do if you're in issues?
Yeah, I think I have to be willing to do it, because the whole purpose of me as the president of hockey operations is to give my team the best chance to win. And Bucci's absolutely right. If you want him, you better go get him, because in about a week, he's going to be gone. And if you don't believe me, look at what happened when Paul Maurice was fired from Winnipeg. That, same week, Florida fired Andrew Brunette, who got them to the playoffs the previous season, because they said Paul Maurice is the coach that gets us a Stanley Cup. And what happened? 2 years later, they won a cup. Yep. This also happened with the Vegas Golden Knights.
Cassidy?
Yeah. Who was it they had?
They had Boston.
They had Gerard Gallant.
Theme.
And they left him on a road trip because they're like, Bruce Cassidy is available. This is not talking down about Drew Bannister, because Drew Bannister's had a tough challenge in itself. But if I'm Doug Armstrong and I believe a coach is available, that sets me over the top. And here's what I back that up with. You just heard Bucci talk about how you got to get the best from these guys if you want to be stars. Guys, I know he was playing like a second or a third line winger at the time. Go look at Jordan Kyrou's season the year Jim Montgomery was an assistant coach with the Blues. I was going to bring him up as well. You've got two guys that had their best seasons as a member of the St. Louis Blues when Jim Montgomery was an assistant coach.
You mentioned it. It is worth noting. They were in a different role then and with different players around them then than they are right now.
And he was an assistant coach, not the head coach. Those are two very different things.
He knows the guys on the staff, though, for the most part. He's got a relationship already with Steve Ott. He certainly knows the inner workings of what's going on here in St. Louis. He has a relationship with Army. Was he with Steen? Did they ever cross paths?
No, Steen was already retired at that point. Steen retired.
But he would have been working with the organization, I think.
No, because he came on as the assistant. Well, maybe you're right. I mean, Steen was back in Sweden, though. He would have been a consultant, but he wasn't
at that point,
with them.
He was just going through the retirement stuff.
Yeah, because Monty got there in 2020, 2021, and Steen retired the previous season. So he probably was a consultant. But remember, when Steen had that injury, he went back to Sweden.
Yeah, so they might have just two ships passing in the night, basically, in terms of their St. Louis.
And that's the hard part with this, because it's not Doug Armstrong. It's Doug Armstrong's decision, but he goes to Alexander Steen, too, and says, Steen, look, this
might be Army saying, Steen, this is who you want.
Could be. It could be.
This is your guy. I mean, he's got a career 659 points percentage, Jim Montgomery does. Now, a lot of the heavy lifting of that is that massive President's Trophy season for Boston when they had an 82% points percentage, which is just ridiculous. But here's his other years. 57%, 58%, 66%. And then this year it's been bad. They're at 475.
Yeah.
If this is what bad looks like for Jim Montgomery, it ain't bad, man.
I can promise you that the moment it is official and he is fired, there will be a team that fires their head coach within a few days to get Jim, unless Jim Montgomery doesn't want to coach right away.
Which is possible. It's possible he says, hey, I want to take a step back. I've got my money. I'm still getting paid out my contract. I'm going to take a step back, relax for a little bit, and see kind of where things are at the end of the year to see what my best situation is. However, if we know anything about Monty, and I'm certainly not as tight with him as many here in St. Louis are, but from hearing things about his relationship here in St. Louis, he really loved it here.
Yep.
So if the Blues were to extend overtures to him or his agent, however that would go, I would imagine there's at least some level of interest from his side of things as well. So
and remember,
we'll
Kent Hitchcock, when he was fired from Columbus, he sat that next season. He was basically sitting away, but he was a consultant with the Blues. And then the next year
they can't do that.
No.
Because once you hire him as a consultant, everybody knows what's up. Man.
Well,
everybody.
And when you're Montgomery, there's no more coaching with Bannister if Montgomery's there. And if you're Montgomery, why would I take a consulting job if the Edmonton Oilers say, you know what, we need a guy who can win, and right now Knoblauch is not that. Montgomery is.
If I wouldn't fire Bannister to hire Montgomery. Montgomery, this isn't a shot against him. He clearly is just like every other NHL coach, right? Now, I do think he does it better than some, but he didn't get the John Cooper treatment to survive through Boston, right? So it's clear that what Buccigross just said of, hey, it's an emotional sport, this will wear down. Guys, the Blues aren't in the window to go get Montgomery. I mean, you just said Montgomery's a guy that takes your team over the top. What's over the top for this roster? Maybe that 8th playoff spot?
But if you're an emotional
sport,
though,
is, what does Army believe that to be?
And if it's an emotional sport, the guys that you're trying to get on board with him have played with him and saw their best careers with him.
Set that aside for a second. It's not about what any of us in this room think. That doesn't matter. What matters is what Army believes about his team. And I don't believe this. I don't agree with it. They think this team can get to the playoffs. And if they think this team, if that is the stated goal for them, right or wrong, do they think Drew Bannister gives them the best chance to do that? Or do they believe that Jim Montgomery gives them the best chance to do that? I mean, I would lean toward Monty. And again, that is not a shot against Drew Bannister. That is an unproven uncertainty versus I believe, championship caliber coach. One of those things has to weigh more than the other. All right, we'll talk about this more, I would assume, tomorrow, so we'll certainly get back into this. But coming up next, we got to get to our football pick'em reveal. It went poorly for all of us. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friend and insurance agent, Tracy Bibb. You hear me talk about her all the time when it comes to the customer service, when it comes to the great insurance coverage that her and her team provide over at Allstate. And she's always there to take care of you. Why? Because she's checking the rates. She's always making sure that she's giving you the most competitive rates so that you're saving money on your car and home insurance. Because when things happen, and they preach, it's not a matter of if something happens, it's when something happens. And when it does, Tracy's there to take care of you and get it all solved. Had this happen, I think it was about a year ago, where I had a tree trunk fall on my shed, called Tracy, had it figured out within a couple of hours. That's the customer service that you get. A lot of people haven't even spoke to their insurance agent, but with Tracy Bibb, she's always in contact with you. Call her today. She's available, and she's going to give you the free non-committal quote, walk you through the entire process to get you switched over to the Bibb agency. 314-328-4260. Again, that's 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bibb.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues back in action tonight as they will host the Minnesota Wild. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Garber for Puck Drop at 7. Robert Thomas will return to the lineup tonight as well for the St. Louis Blues. And Kasperi Kapanen was claimed off of waivers by the Edmonton Oilers. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Kerry Davis just walked in the studio. We're all wondering, like, what the hell are you doing? Kerry? You got 20 minutes, man.
It was tough to focus on my Sports Center update there. I'm not going to lie.
And he's like just digging through the recycling.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did Kerry throw away his contract? Is there some kind of like super important paper? No, he wrote down his line combination.
And you know what? Props to that guy. Nearly nailed it. Just had neighbors in Cairo flipped.
So there you go. Hockey guy
CD.
Kerry Davis going to be coming up here in about 20 minutes or so right here on 101 ESPN. But before that, we got to get to our football pick and reveal, Alex.
No, we don't. We really don't.
Things went poorly. Let's go ahead and knock these right out. T-Bone, we're going to get started with your picks. The first one was better for you than the rest of them were.
All right, guys, for my one-point play, I'm going to start in the NFL. And look, I've warned about the West to East Coast noon start, right? That's like playing football at 10 a.m. But you know who's really good at having his team ready for such an occasion? My guy, Sean McVay. Give me the Rams -4.5.
Make it to Williams. Stafford floats it. Nakua reaching, diving, holding on. Touchdown, Los Angeles.
You get nervous there at the end?
I was nervous the whole game, if I'm being completely honest, because they did not come out high-flying like I was expecting.
Oh, he didn't have him ready like you thought?
Drake May's good.
Yeah.
I'm ready to say that.
May's
Now
pretty
we
good.
realize that Mac Jones just actually was a bad quarterback.
I don't know what the ceiling is for Drake May, but that guy's good and his receivers stink. So if he's putting up these kinds of numbers already, yeah, he's going to be a good player. New England found something there. But your team, staying alive, T-Bone. Staying alive.
I'm telling you, I think they win the West.
1 point play, good hit by T-Bone on his LA Rams. 2 point play was on the college side of things, didn't go quite so well.
Arkansas, guys, they allow a lot of explosive plays. The Hogs are going to be wrapped up and tied down by the Texas Longhorns this week. I like Texas on the road at Arkansas. -12.
Ewers sprint right to the end zone. Touchdown, Longhorns! Matthew Golden.
Man. Regrets?
No regrets.
No, I enjoyed that loss.
That was tone.
He deserved that one.
He did, but that was tone.
Dude, Arkansas turned the ball over twice in this game.
I couldn't believe Texas
Had
didn't kill them.
230 total yards, averaged 2.5 yards per rush, and still kept it close. Texas has some issues. They're a really, really good team, but
If only they had a good quarterback.
man, they are not as complete as I think some make them out to be. They're a very good team, but not great, I don't believe.
I agree. That was the first game I thought, should they go to Arch Manning? And I wonder if that's a
Thinking that for a year and a
conversation.
So, can't relate.
Unbelievable.
Your 3-point play also in the college football side of things. This was one of the more shocking results, in my opinion, of the weekend.
The Ducks are the best team in the country. There is no questions asked. Wisconsin is hosting Oregon this weekend, and somehow Oregon is only a 13.5-point favorite. Guys, Wisconsin's played 4 teams that are ranked in the top 25. You know what the record is? They're 0-4. You know what they've lost those games on average by? 38-14. Wisconsin can only beat teams like Purdue that stink. So give me the Oregon Ducks -13.5.
Ohio State. Another handoff. James to the outside. Ferguson with a block. James with a touchdown.
When are we going to learn that anytime one of our dumb mouths open up and say, and somehow this line is this way, that is a loss?
Yeah.
They burned me the second week of our pick'em because I was like, Oregon's going to go off. It was a and then they just got shellacked.
They were playing Boise State.
No, it was the first week that I bet against them.
Oh, I got nothing.
It wasn't Boise State. It was the first one.
Yeah. Weird game for the Ducks. They're still the best team in the country.
Yeah, it was against Idaho.
Totally. On the road, conference game. This is why I don't touch those games that big of a line.
They play in Oregon.
Weird game by them. I still think they're the best team in the country. However, it does show that they are flawed. And they are not a team that can just destroy everybody that they go up against. Defense is really good. That offense has to get better. It's got to be better when they go into the college football playoff mix. All right, so a 1-2 week for T-Bone gets the 1 point. He is up to 11 points so far through the first 3 weeks. He is now 6-3 overall. Let's get to Alex's pick. It starts with the NFL side of things. It's a pick that I had as well, but on the other side, unfortunately.
Point play, I'm going to the NFL, and I'm anticipating BK's team is finally going to lose their game. And I think Buffalo has been clicking on all cylinders, but I think a 2.5-point spread, I think Buffalo wins this one.
Now one of the best players, one of the best weapons for the Bills is going to be out. Chiefs plus 2.5 is my 2-point play this week.
Fakes left, now taken off. Gonna run for it, he got it! And there he goes! Inside the 10, the 5! Oh, the play of the year in the NFL!
You should have picked you should have used the highlight of Mahomes throwing that second interception of the game there to ruin the Kansas City Chiefs' hopes.
I'm mostly mad at myself because all week prior to Thursday, I was like, I think the Bills are going to win this one. This is the game. Because I had told you guys this. I thought that the Chiefs would lose that game. It felt like the most likely game they would lose all year long, even coming into the season. And then I convinced myself on Thursday that the Chiefs would find a way to win it. It's like, they run a bunch of cover 2. Chiefs are good against cover 2. The Bills were the better team, and they deserve to win that one straight up. No crying here by me. I think that it's actually probably going to be a good thing for the Chiefs long term is to have that out of the way. They can learn from some of the stuff that showed up on film that has been showing up previously, but it didn't cost them games. Nice win for you, Alex. Good pick there. 1 point play.
I wish I would have made it a higher pick, but I didn't really trust it. So,
all right, on the college football side of things went not so well for Alex.
But I'm going to the college for my 2-point play.
Boy, someone's desperate for points.
I'm taking LSU -4 against Florida. I don't think Florida's been very good this season.
And up here. Touchdown, Jacoby Jackson to give the Gators the lead.
This is why I don't pick college games.
They look pretty good this week.
Tell me about it. The moment I said this, LSU was destined for failure. And they had just trash offense from start to finish.
LSU's done. They gave up.
Yeah.
After that loss against Alabama, they gave up.
They should probably fire their coach. That's what happens.
They really might. I don't know what's going to happen with Brian Kelly, but
embarrassing effort.
Dude, it's entirely possible they finish with 7 wins this year.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing for them. They don't do that in Baton Rouge. That team should be better than this record that they have currently. That being said, Florida has a quarterback, man. That was the story of that game. DJ Lagway is really good, and he's going to be a problem for the SEC for the next couple of seasons.
You want to talk about embarrassing? Why don't you go to my next pick?
Let's go to the NFL.
The Falcons game last week was embarrassing. And I know Denver's been good, but a 2-point spread for Falcons as the underdog, I think they keep that one close. I think they win that one. They're going to have a good enough response in this game, and I'm just still not in line thinking that Denver is this team that is just going to continue to pile up wins.
Quick toss, Franklin, inside, touchdown, Denver!
I really liked the Broncos side of this one, Alex, and then I was a dummy, and in our football pick'em challenge for the Riz Show versus the Fast Lane.
Oh, yeah, you're taking it in the butt today.
Dude, I am. I deserve it. All of my 50-50 picks, I told you guys on Friday when I was going through, I was like, a bunch of these are 50-50, and I have no idea which way to go. Every single one of them went the other direction. And this was one of those games that I wasn't sure completely on. I convinced myself, just like with the Chiefs game, that the Falcons would win, so I would have been there with you.
I didn't anticipate, though, the tough loss for Denver the previous week to where you lose on that blocked field goal. Like, Denver was going to be motivated. I'm done with Stalter. If you're listening, I'm done with your trash team. Like, stop telling me that this is a fantasy football team because they don't even put up points fantasy football wise.
It's true.
B. John Robinson is the only person that puts up points for them.
Speaking of rookie quarterbacks, I mentioned that I like what we've seen so far from Drake May. Bo Nix is like the 20th best quarterback in the league, and I don't know that he's ever going to be significantly better than that. But he's a franchise-level quarterback. You can win with this guy on this kind of a contract.
Yep.
And if they've got this kind of a defense, good coaching staff in place, Broncos are better than I gave them credit for. They're a real playoff team.
I think they could pull off an upset in the postseason.
They could pull off one. Wild card round, get to the divisional round, lose there. But yeah,
win a game.
They're a real team, and I couldn't have said that about them at any point, basically since Peyton Manning retired. All right, for my 1-point play, I went to the college football side of things, and worked out all right for me with this big spread.
Have you watched Purdue this year?
Yeah, they stink.
They're one of the worst teams in college football.
True.
They lost to Notre Dame 66-7. Penn State is currently a 28-point favorite against Purdue, and I think they cover that spread.
Aller, number 15 from the 15, and a back shoulder throw to Tyler Warren. Touchdown.
All right, that's a good hit by me. I don't really need to say much about it. It was a good team against a bad team. I picked the good team. It worked out all right for me. On the 3-point side of things, it didn't go quite as well.
All right, my 3-point play, it's risky. I think Georgia is getting more respect than they should. I think they're going to lose again this week against Tennessee. Yeah. Tennessee's a 9.5-point underdog in this game on the road at Georgia. I think they win it outright, but plus 9.5 points, absolutely. Give me the Vols.
Back. Flushed. The takeoff. Carson back with a flag out. Scores.
Stop using the word. Absolutely, I think they take it.
I
don't know why
felt so good about this game early on, and then it just could not have gone worse in the second half.
Can we talk about him going, I know this is risky, but let me put it my 3-point play.
Usually the risky ones are the 1-point play.
All right, looking back, I should have flipped Penn State and Tennessee. All right, I should have. But
a bad team taking on a good team. I picked the good team. But 1-point play.
All right, we got one more week in this week's football pick-em, or this month's football pick-em. T-Bone's running away with this thing. He would have to have a week from hell.
Yeah, you both have to go undefeated, and I go
one.
And lose all of them.
He's got 11 points. Alex and I tied once again, bringing up the rear at 6 points through the first couple of weeks of this thing. It's all going to be determined by the final week of our pick'em.
I don't like that. But I got ice in my veins, so I got this.
As Alex said, I got to get punched or not punched. I got to get shot in the butt coming up.
You're going to get punched in the butt.
On the fast lane, we went long with Bucci, so we ended up having to take a double break here. So the fast lane's coming up next, around 2:15. You'll be able to hear or see me get shot in the butt. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.